Chapter 2082. Everyone's thoughts were running wild. However, Yi-Ching Luo was still calm and there was no change in the expression on her face. She stood there lazily. The strong wind around her fluttered her fiery red dress. It made the beautiful woman look even more beautiful than before. After a while, the young lady's long eyelashes moved. Everyone's heart trembled along with him. They were guessing what method Yi-Ching Luo would use to retaliate. Yi-Ching Luo suddenly raised her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes were overflowing with color, as though it was decorated with thousands of stars, sparkling brightly. Her footsteps moved. Her figure flashed in front of everyone. Only an afterimage could be seen. Yi-Ching Luo's figure had appeared on the stage. She stood beside Old Grand Madam, tilted her head and looked at Old Grand Madam with a warm smile. "Old Grand Madam, are you done? If you are, go to the back and sit down, don't delay the auspicious time of the succession." The entire crowd was silent again. No one had expected this. After experiencing Old Grand Madam's words to draw a clear line between her and the Yi family, Yi-Ching Luo was still thinking about the patriarch's succession ceremony. Didn't she understand Old Grand Madam's intention? Or perhaps she wanted to play dumb and inherit the patriarch's position first. Old Grand Madam was stunned. Yi-Ching Luo's reaction was really out of her expectations. After being stunned for a while, Old Grand Madam stared at the smiling young lady and said with a steely face, "Seventh girl, Three Springs sect doesn't belong to you. You can't force it." There was a hint of threat in her words. Yi-Ching Luo smiled sweetly, "But Old Grand Madam, what else do you think you can use to stop me?" Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled, like a cunning fox. Between her brows, there was a teasing smile. "According to Old Grand Madam's story, since I'm not from the Yi family, then I don't need to respect the Yi family's elders," she said with a smile, "so I must let the succession ceremony continue. How can Old Grand Madam stop me?" "You." The elder ancestor's expression turned ugly. "Even if you don't have the blood of the Yi family flowing in your body, you've grown up in the Yi family for the past 15 years. You've called me elder ancestor for 15 years. Yi-Ching Luo raised her eyebrows disapprovingly. "So what?" The girl's actions were clearly very normal. However, for some reason, the old ancestor's heart tightened. Instinctively, he took a step back. You want to destroy the Three Springs sect. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" Old Grand Madam's voice tightened as she stared at Yi-Ching Luo as she questioned angrily. "I don't have the blood of the Yi clan flowing in my veins, so even if I kill Yi Fengru and you, I won't be struck by lightning, right?" Yi-Ching Luo tilted her head as she laughed mischievously. She raised her hand and casually flipped her hair. Her every movement was extremely lazy and full of the charm of a young girl. Unbridled and flamboyant, she was like a poppy, making it impossible for anyone to take their eyes off her. Old Grand Madam's expression instantly turned gloomy. "Yi-Ching Luo. Today I'm here, don't you dare to snatch away the inheritance rights of Three Springs sect." Her sinister eyes swept towards the direction of her side. A white shadow flashed past. He saw the sect's elder standing in between Yi-Ching Luo and Old Grand Madam. Chapter 2083. Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows and smiled enchantingly. "Did I say that I want to participate in the worship process?" "You." The sect elder choked for a moment and straightened his face. "If you don't participate in the worship process, you can't proceed with the patriarch's succession ceremony. This is the rule set by the Three Springs sect ancestors." Yi-Ching Luo smiled even brighter. "I didn't say that I won't participate in the worship process." The sect elder's face sunk. "Yi-Ching Luo. Are you toying with this elder?" Yi-Ching Luo glanced at him disapprovingly, insolently and arrogantly. "Teasing? What do you have that is worth me teasing you?" His blunt words caused the onlookers to roar with laughter. The sect elder's face was filled with gloomy clouds. His hands under his sleeves clenched into fists. It had been 100 years since anyone dared to speak to him in this manner. This young lady dared to be so insolent. Thinking of the supreme aura she released earlier. The sect elder's eyes were covered with a layer of coldness. At the age of 15, she had already stepped into the sky profound realm. She was indeed a rare genius in the world. If this young lady was from the Yi family, as the sect elder of Three Springs sect, he would be deeply gratified. But this young lady was not from the Yi family. This kind of talent would only bring misfortune to the Yi family. If they didn't eliminate the roots, it would bring endless harm to Three Springs sect. The sect elder's gaze towards Yi Qing Luo was filled with murderous intent. This murderous intent was fleeting. But Yi Qing Luo still sensed it. Yi Qing Luo sneered in her heart and swept a disdainful glance at the sect elder. If the sect elder wanted to make a move on her, she didn't mind using the sect elder as a practice target. She could tell. This sect elder's profound grade was also in the sky profound realm. His grade was about 3rd or 4th grade. Although after the profound sky realm, the gap between each grade was as wide as the heavens. But Yi Qing Luo felt that since it was a practice target, this difference was just right. But before that, she had to settle the sect leader's succession ceremony first. She walked past the sect elder and walked directly to the altar. Sect elder, please don't waste everyone's time. Everyone here has come from their busy schedules to attend this succession ceremony. As the sect elder of the Three Springs sect, you are disgracing the name of the Three Springs sect by wasting everyone's time. The sect elder was so angry that he strode toward the altar. I've said it before. You're not a descendant of the Three Springs sect. You have no right to inherit the Three Springs sect. He stretched out his hand, wanting to stop Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo took a small step back and gave a low laugh. Sect elder, when did I say that I want to inherit Three Springs sect? The sect elder was taken aback. The onlookers were also stunned. It seemed like Yi Qing Luo had indeed never mentioned that she was going to inherit Three Springs sect from the start. However, she had been urging the succession ceremony to continue. Wasn't he going to inherit the Three Springs sect? Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about everyone's dazed gazes. Her hand, facing a certain point in the sky, opened up slightly. The young lady stood against the light. Her beauty was not as arrogant and wanton as before. Instead, there was a kind of extremely gentle warmth. That pair of wanton and devilish charming eyes. At this moment, it was filled with a deep smile. The smile on her red lips was bright and radiant. Such a Yi Qing Luo. It was everyone's first time seeing it. Their hearts were inexplicably agitated. The young lady's fair jade-like hands slipped out from her sleeves. Slender fingers, stretched towards the sky. Chapter 2084. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who was Yi Qing Luo talking to? Future patriarch. Wasn't she talking to herself? Everyone looked towards the direction where Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand. They saw a dazzling ray on the horizon, adding a gorgeous color to the entire sky. Carrying a majestic and powerful force, it descended from the sky. That was a leopard beast with shiny black fur. The leopard beast's body was extremely sturdy, about 3 to 4 times the size of an ordinary leopard beast. A pair of black eyes, extremely vigilant, with a strong warning color. Dong! The black leopard beast landed on the ground. 4 huge leopard claws stepped out 4 strong air currents. The dust on the ground stirred up, a hurricane suddenly arose. The sharp claws that stepped on the ground, like a sharp blade, shining with a sharp luster. And the most shocking thing was, It was the two people sitting on the back of the leopard beast. A man and a woman. When the leopard beast stabilized its footsteps, it proudly swept its eyes around, after confirming that there was no danger. The leopard beast slowly crouched down, lowering its body. Two figures slowly came down from the leopard beast. The young man was dressed in a navy blue luxurious brocade robe, his black hair neatly tied up, secured by a white jade crown. His figure looked somewhat slender, but also tall and slender. Perhaps it was because of this period of experience. Or perhaps it was because of the dignified and noble clothes on him. The young man's entire aura had an earth-shaking change. His aura was fully unleashed, dignified and luxurious. Behind the youth was a young girl dressed as a plain-colored servant girl. Although she was a servant girl. But looking at the pace that followed the young man, steady and powerful. Graceful figure, thousands of postures. No matter how one looked, she was definitely not an ordinary servant girl. Just these two people, the moment they appeared, attracted everyone's attention. Old 8th. When old Grand Madam saw that young man, a trace of disbelief immediately surfaced on her dark face. She stood up abruptly with the help of her walking stick, her body swaying, extremely shocked. Old Grand Madam. Yi Fengyu cupped his hands, respectfully bowing in the direction of old Grand Madam. Neither servile nor overbearing attitude made old Grand Madam stagger a step back. Lady Biming supported him in time, unable to believe her own eyes. This young man, a young man with such a majestic and powerful aura. It was Yi Fengyu. The youngest of the Yi clan, Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu didn't wait for old Grand Madam's reaction as he withdrew his hand and walked straight towards Yi Qingluo. When he saw Yi Qingluo, Yi Fengyu's youthful face finally revealed a smile that resembled that of a child. Sister. He called out in a daze, his heart full of excitement. Yi Qingluo walked in front of him. A 15-year-old boy was at the age of growth. The current Yi Fengyu was 2/3 taller than Yi Qingluo's head. Yi Qingluo had to raise her head to look at him. Xiao Yu, go ahead. Yi Qingluo smiled as she caressed Yi Fengyu's head, her eyes filled with warmth. Yi Fengyu nodded vigorously. The young man with a majestic aura in front of everyone just now, the minute he stood in front of Yi Qingluo, he became the little brother next door. Anyone could tell that the relationship between Yi Qingluo and Yi Fengyu was extremely deep. Yi Qingluo put her hands behind her back, tilted her head and looked at the sect elder with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Sect elder, Xiao Yu is the direct bloodline descendant of Three Springs sect. Do you have any objections to let him inherit the position of sect master? The sect elder had been in closed-door cultivation for such a long time, he didn't know much about the outside world. Listening to Yi Qingluo's words. Chapter 2085. The position of the Three Springs sect leader was not something that could be easily inherited. Who told Yi Qingluo that as long as she was a descendant of the Three Springs sect, she would be able to inherit the position of sovereign? How could an immature child inherit the position of the sect master? The sect elder's face darkened. Of course, even if you have any opinions, it has nothing to do with me. The sect elder had just spat out 2 words when he was covered by Yi Qingluo's disapproving voice. The voice of the sect elder was stuck in his throat. He couldn't go up or down. His face turned red. Yi Qingluo continued to smile. Old Grand Madam, do you have anything else to say now? The old ancestor's eyes were filled with shock as he stared at Yi Fengyu, unable to recover for a long time. She remembered, after Yi Qingqian led the remnants of the dark forces and joined hands with Yi Fengru to invade Three Springs sect. As Yi Qingluo's biological brother who had always been doted on. Yi Qingqian vented her anger on Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu's situation was extremely miserable. She had always thought that Yi Fengyu had died in Yi Qingqian's hands. Unexpectedly, not only did Yi Fengyu not die. On the contrary, he was no longer like a child who couldn't grow up. Instead, he was extremely dignified and capable of shouldering great responsibilities. The old ancestor's heart trembled fiercely. No, no. I, as an elder of the Three Springs sect, nominate Old Eighth as the new sect leader. The old ancestor stared at Yi Fengyu, his voice trembling. Yi Fengyu was a direct descendant of the Three Springs sect. Yi Qingqian was no longer considered as a member of the Three Springs sect. Yi Fengru, his appearance was neither human nor ghost. He also had the infamy of killing his own father and forcing the abdication of the throne. He had also joined an underworld power. His reputation had long since been ruined. Now, only Yi Fengyu could shoulder this great responsibility. Even if Yi Fengyu wasn't mature enough. As a grandmother, she could still live for a few more years. She could assist Yi Fengyu and help him grow faster. Furthermore, Yi Fengyu had Yi Qingluo as his backing. Yi Qingluo was going to inherit the position of sovereign. The old ancestor couldn't accept it at all. She had been resisting the urge to stop Yi Qingluo. It was because, only by keeping the secret that Yi Qingluo wasn't a member of the Yi family. To make Yi Qinglu the patriarch of Three Springs sect. Only then could the Three Springs sect's reputation be stabilized, and only then could the Three Springs sect return to its rightful status and nobility. In fact, it was just as the Baiming clan had said. Yi Qingluo had the ability to lead Three Springs sect to become the leader of the four major sects. Therefore, the elder had been suppressing the unwillingness in his heart. Now, the successor was a member of the Yi family. Furthermore, he could make use of Yi Qingluo's power and reputation. This was the best of both worlds. How could the old ancestor have any objections? No. I don't agree. The sect elder's face darkened. Had it been too long since he, the sect elder, appeared in the Three Springs sect, causing the current Three Springs sect to be so disrespectful? He felt that his dignity as the leader of a sect had been trampled on by a junior. If he allowed these juniors to be arrogant and decide everything for the Three Springs sect, he would be doomed. Then why would he, as an elder of the sect, come here? The more the sect elder thought about it, the angrier he got. How can you be so perfunctory when it comes to inheriting the patriarch's position? Changing this and that, is it a joke for you to assume the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch? He frowned and shot a sharp glare at old ancestor. We haven't seen each other for decades and you've become muddle-headed. Chapter 2086. The sect elder snorted coldly. The previous patriarch knew that Yi Qingluo was not a descendant of the Yi family, but still insisted on making her the young matriarch of Three Springs sect. This really makes me doubt if the current Yi family still has the ability to inherit the patriarch position. He paused and stared sharply at old Grand Madam. So, I have decided to stay in Three Springs sect for a few months, to investigate carefully, among the remaining descendants of Three Springs sect, who is the most suitable person to become the future patriarch. This. Old Grand Madam's face was ashen. She wanted to stop him but didn't know how. Listening to the sect elder. Apparently, he had made up his mind. The sect elder flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "There's no need to say anything, I have made up my mind. Today's patriarch succession ceremony, shall." Hee. A contemptuous laughter, extremely ethereal and ethereal. That laughter was as clear as pearls falling on a plate, extremely pleasant to the ears. But, at the same time, it was pleasant to the ears. Bursts of sound rippled in the ears, giving off a strange feeling. Even the sect elder couldn't help but have goosebumps all over his body. Old Grand Madam, it actually doesn't matter if there is this sect elder in the patriarch succession ceremony. Yi Qingluo's voice was arrogant and presumptuous. She slowly walked to the front of Yi Fengyu and looked at the sect elder with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Old Grand Madam was stunned and quickly understood the meaning of Yi Qing Luo's words. Wasn't Yi Qing Luo's arrogance a little too much? Even if Yi Qing Luo was already a Sky Profound cultivator. But after all, she had just stepped into Sky Profound first grade not too long ago, and was still not adept at controlling her profound energy. How could she go against the sect elder who had lived for 500 years? She thought that she didn't care about the sect elder's opinion. Could this succession ceremony really ignore the existence of the sect elder? Old Grand Madam wanted Yi Fengyu to become the new patriarch. But she didn't dare to disobey the sect elder in front of him, and didn't dare to go against the sect elder back then. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's question, the Grand Elder could only remain silent. When the sect elder heard that, he was so infuriated that his white beard stubble puffed up. Yi Qing Luo, since you're not a descendant of Three Springs sect, then Three Springs sect's internal affairs have nothing to do with you. Now, get off the stage for this elder. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head and looked at him, someone who hasn't appeared in the past few decades and has never been in charge of Three Springs sect. Do you think you're qualified to say this? As she spoke, she looked at the sect elder with a disdainful smile. In recent years, the Three Springs sect's reputation has been declining. It's not only the imperial family who can easily cause trouble in the Three Springs sect. Even the servants of the other 4 great profound practitioner clans and clans dare to cause trouble in the Three Springs sect. The Three Springs sect had become a joke. Where were you at that time? Yi Qing Luo's voice was very low. There was even a hint of laughter in his voice. When she said the last word, the sound of her voice fell. The entire garden was extremely quiet. The sect elder was also stunned and did not speak for a long time. When he came back to his senses, his face was red with shame and indignation. He couldn't believe that he was provoked by a junior to the point where he couldn't resist at all. His face was ashen as he replied angrily, the Three Springs sect's reputation has declined. That's because of the previous sect leader's ability and the way he handled things. There's a huge problem. What does all of this have to do with me? Chapter 2087. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows, her long and narrow eyes rippled with ridicule. But Three Springs sect's reputation has dropped, their status has plummeted, no matter which force it is, they can easily step on us. Her slender fingers touched her chin, her eyes curved. What's the difference between this and Three Springs sect heading towards destruction? The sect elder's face turned gloomy, his fists were clenched. You are talking nonsense. Looking at the past few days, Yi Qing Qian led the dark forces to invade Three Springs sect, and made Three Springs sect become the assistants of the dark forces to invade the West Continent, almost destroying Three Springs sect's illustrious reputation. Yi Qing Luo looked at the sect elder smilingly, but at that time, elder. Where were you? You. The sect elder squeezed out a word from between his teeth, but couldn't spit out the next word. The crowd expressed that the amount of information was getting more and more explosive. Everyone looked at the sect elder with despise and disdain. In the past, the sect elder didn't appear anywhere. He carried the Three Springs sect's glory, and was a rare sky mystic overlord in Nirvana realm. No matter where he went, he would be envied and respected by everyone. Since when did people look at him with disdain and disdain? The sect elder bellowed, Yi Qing Luo, you are an outsider, what right do you have to judge me? Based on the fact that Three Springs sect was revived in my hands. Yi Qing Luo replied arrogantly. Sharp arrogance was released from Yi Qing Luo's body without any concealment. The powerful and majestic aura overshadowed the sect elder's aura with absolute suppression. Yi Qing Luo raised her head, her brows were filled with a lazy expression, but in her eyes, there was a gleam of brilliance, overflowing with youth. Sect elder, when Three Springs sect was in dire straits, you never appeared. To me, it really doesn't matter whether Three Springs sect has a sect elder or not. Yi Qing Luo didn't give any face to the sect elder. The young lady's devastatingly beautiful face was calm without any ripples. The long and narrow eyes were supposed to be enchanting and charming. However, the girl's aura was so cold and piercingly cold. The sect elder staggered a few steps back. His pair of flustered eyes stared at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. He was so angry that he was trembling all over. His face was as black as charcoal. Yiqing Luo, you've become a sky mystic overlord at such a young age and you think you're so great that you can be lawless. The sect elder knew that there was no chance of winning if he were to bicker with this young lady. He sneered and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. I must teach you a lesson on behalf of the Yi family, you silly little girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Yiqing Luo spat out of pooey. Was there a hole in the head of this sect elder? She kept saying that she was not a descendant of the Three Springs sect and had no right to interfere with the internal affairs of the Three Springs sect. And now he was saying that he would teach her a lesson on behalf of the Yi clan. Didn't he find these words contradictory? Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to complain in her heart. The sect elder's attack had already arrived. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she speedily retreated backwards, avoiding his attack. Chapter 2088. Tisk, so this is the so-called sect elder. I've learned something new today. After living for hundreds of years, he's only in the sky profound stage. Our boss Qing Luo had only cultivated for a few months and she's already in the sky profound stage. No wonder this old man is jealous of our boss Qing Luo. Relying on the fact that he's lived for hundreds of years, to bully a junior who had just started cultivating, this is the style of a sect elder. All sorts of ridicule were heard from the surroundings. The representatives from various powerhouses shook their heads in disgust. To the sect elder, what kind of humiliation was this? The second wave of attack which was launched towards Yiqing Luo was completely frozen. There was no way for them to continue. However, among the crowd, there was another wave of voices. What the sect elder said isn't without reason. Since Yiqing Luo is not the descendant of Three Springs sect, then she has no right to ask about Three Springs sect's matters. Who knows who the new patriarch of Three Springs sect is? It's not E7th Mrs. Ah, wrong, it should be Yiqing Luo, and it's not her turn to make the decision. Who knows Yiqing Luo and Yi family's 8th young master's close relationship? If Yi family's 8th young master becomes Three Springs sect's patriarch, it's no different from Yiqing Luo becoming Three Springs sect's patriarch. The scene instantly became extremely chaotic. Due to the crowd's gossip, the sect elder could only swallow his anger. He had never expected this. The representatives who had always been fighting in the open and in the dark, contending for supremacy. They actually worked together for Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo totally didn't care about the outside world's discussions. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Yi Fengyu's wrist, pulling him to the front of the altar. Little you, worship the heavens. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time with those people. The most important thing now was to let Yi Fengyu finish the inheritance ceremony and return to the Mu family to recuperate. Yi Fengyu's injuries had not fully recovered. He needed at least another half a month to recuperate. This was the best outcome after Ghost Doctor had treated Yi Fengyu's injuries. Xiaochen did not know how long Yi Fengyu's willpower could hold out during the succession ceremony. Presumptuous. What right do you have to preside over the ceremony? The sect elder gnashed his teeth and roared. Off to the side, Yi Fengyu furiously roared, bastard. Yiqing Luo, you're just a slut. You're exactly the same as that shameless mother of yours, little bastards born of cheap mothers. Don't even think about making Yi Fengyu the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. I will never agree. Suddenly, he leaped up. It turned into a black afterimage, stirring up waves of air that surged in the air. In the air, Yiqing Luo could vaguely smell a strange smell. Her expression changed and she quickly took out 2 pills from her fingertips. One of them slipped into Yi Fengyu's mouth. One of them slipped into Shi Ju's mouth. At the same time, the onlookers suddenly fell down one by one. The air was gradually covered with a layer of black smoke. Poison. He poisoned us. The onlookers reacted and immediately covered their mouths and noses. However, no matter how hard they tried not to breathe, the feeling of powerlessness from being poisoned would still corrode their entire bodies. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, everyone present were either sprawled on the ground or on their seats. The only people who were standing were Yiqing Luo and Yi Fengyu, who had unknowingly sat on Shi Ju's back and leapt into mid-air. Bastard! Today, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Yi Fengyu laughed maniacally. In his hand was a black bottle. Chapter 2089. Yiqing Luo frowned. Yi Fengyu's other identity was a dark medicine master. She knew that Yi Fengyu would definitely take the opportunity to poison her and win. But Yiqing Luo didn't expect him to use such a sinister method. The target of the poison was not her. It was everyone present. Sister. Yi Fengyu was on the back of Shi Yan, calling out to her worriedly. Yiqing Luo had only fed him 2 antidote pills. He didn't see Yiqing Luo swallowing the pills. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly. Xiao Yu, wait a while more, the inheritance ceremony will continue soon. Sister. Yi Fengyu's heart was shaken. At this time, Yiqing Luo was still thinking about his inheritance ceremony. She was obviously not his biological sister. Why, after knowing everything, would she still treat him so well without any hesitation? He looked at the tall platform, at the slender figure that was bursting with boundless power. He secretly swore in his heart. He must become stronger. He must make Three Springs sect the #1 sect. He wanted his sister to have a home of her own no matter what happened. Three Springs sect would always be his sister's backing. Yiqing Luo didn't talk to Yi Fengyu anymore. She narrowed her eyes and glanced around. Xiao Chen had already analyzed the composition of the black smoke in the air in his mind after refining it 100 times. After confirming that these fainted people were not in danger, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. These people were the representatives of the major forces in the West Continent. If they all died in Three Springs sect, no matter what the reason was, or who killed them, it would all be related to Three Springs sect. Moreover, so many people from the major forces had died in Three Springs sect. Another storm was about to be set off in the West Continent. Xiao Yu was about to take over Three Springs sect. Yiqing Luo couldn't let so many people die in Three Springs sect before it was in Xiao Yu's hands. Her gaze finally fell on the complacent Yi Fengyu, who was laughing maniacally. Meeting Yiqing Luo's gaze, Yi Fengyu laughed wildly. Bastard, you want to kill me? Just come at me, as long as you dare to touch me, I will let these people all die in Three Springs sect, ha ha ha. Yi Fengyu naturally understood the consequences of these people dying in the Three Springs sect. This was the reason why he didn't choose the highly toxic powder immediately, causing everyone present to lose their lives. He wanted to make use of these people. Threatening Yiqing Luo. He wanted to see Yiqing Luo kneeling in front of him begging for mercy. He wanted to see Yiqing Luo in a disheveled state, suffering from humiliation. Yiqing Luo glanced at him coldly as she smiled, her expression calm. Really? Are you trying to compete with me in speed? So, do you think it's faster for me to kill you or for you to poison these people? Yi Fengyu's face paled. He stared vigilantly at Yiqing Luo. However, a red shadow flashed before his eyes. Before he could even react, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. A burst of profound energy slapped onto his chest. He moved his fingers and quickly tried to open the other bottle. But before he could do anything, Yiqing Luo's fingers had already grabbed onto his wrist. With several cracking sounds, Yi Fingru let out a pained scream. His entire face was contorted in pain. You deserve to die, do you know that? Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. Under that charming smile, bit by bit, she broke Yi Fingru's hand. The bottle in his hand fell into Yiqing Luo's hand. Chapter 2090. Yi Fengru was horrified. But he didn't even have the strength to struggle. He could tell that Yiqing Luo hadn't released her full strength. But, even if she didn't use her full strength, she did the same to him. He didn't even have the strength to resist. How strong was this slut? Yi Fengru couldn't figure it out. Although Yiqing Luo's mother was also a cultivator, but she was just a weak girl who only knew how to rely on Yi Tianquang. How could she give birth to such a pervert like Yiqing Luo? Paw! The crisp sound of a slap resounded through the quiet garden. Yiqing Luo's slap landed on Yi Fengru's face. Her expression was cold, her charming eyes were suffused with a trace of coldness. Yi Fengru, if you insult my mother again, I will give you a slap, or give you a punch. In the end, she added another sentence, curse in your heart, I will still hit you. Yi Fengru's face was swollen, blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. He stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo, his eyes filled with hatred. She could hear him cursing in his heart. I can't hear you, but from your appearance, it seems like you are cursing me, cursing my mother, so I will hit you. Yiqing Luo smiled, completely unreasonable. Immediately, she raised her hand and slapped the other side of his face. I think, you are cursing me in your heart again. F***ck. Yi Fengru's ears were ringing from the slap, his cheeks were burning with pain. He cursed through gritted teeth. Yiqing Luo raised her brows, smiling. But, her slender little hand, clenched into a fist, unceremoniously punched his stomach, fiercely. Ah! Yi Fengru screamed, only feeling that his abdomen was pierced through, his internal organs seemed to be ruptured. His whole body fell straight to the ground. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and looked at him with a sneer. Didn't you think you can be arrogant after poisoning me? Come on, continue to be arrogant for me to see. Yi Fengru had no strength to move. Both his hands were broken by Yiqing Luo. Under Yiqing Luo's earlier punch, the slightest movement of her internal organs would cause a heart-wrenching pain. He couldn't move. He didn't dare to move. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, he forced his eyes open. He had lost too much blood, and the pain was unbearable. He could no longer see the scene in front of him clearly. In his haze, he could only see the red-clothed girl standing in front of him. Her eyes were filled with mockery as she stared at him unblinkingly. All of a sudden, Yi Fengru felt as if something was tugging at his heart. It looked like it was trying to grab onto something. But in the next instant, his vision went black. Something surged in his mind. When his eyes regained clarity, once again, another slender and delicate figure appeared in front of him. This was Enchanting. Yi Fengru's cloudy eyes gradually emitted a black stream of air. His lips trembled slightly. He kept repeating the word Enchanting. He saw Enchanting. He saw Enchanting's tragic death. He saw Yiqing Luo standing beside Enchanting, who was being devoured by the poisonous worms, laughing out loud and wantonly. The black energy in his eyes grew thicker. The malevolent expression on his face became more and more twisted and terrifying. Yiqing Luo, don't be complacent too early. This time round, the winner is still uncertain. Yi Fengru didn't know where the strength came from, but he suddenly slammed his palm on the ground. His body was like an arrow leaving the bow, scurrying into midair. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, a few deafening energy fluctuations were heard, enveloping the entire garden. Chapter 2091. Gravel splattered and dust billowed. The various powerhouses' representatives who had fallen onto the ground due to being poisoned were covered with tiny wounds after being splattered by those gravel. Some of the stronger powerhouses' representatives regained their consciousness under this kind of piercing pain. They wanted to avoid it, but the feeling of powerlessness made them unable to move at all. So it's like this. The young lady's clear voice, which seemed to be in deep thoughts, was transmitted into everyone's ears. The various powerhouses' representatives mustered up their last breath and looked towards the direction of the voice. Under the encirclement of gravel and dust, they saw a young lady dressed in red, still standing on the high stage, raising her head and looking towards a certain direction in the sky. It was Yi-Ching Luo. It was her. She was fine. She wasn't poisoned like them. Everyone's hearts inexplicably calmed down. As long as Yi-Ching Luo was still around, they would definitely be fine. Not knowing why, the other party was obviously a 15-year-old young lady, but they had developed such a strong reliance on this 15-year-old young lady. Swish, 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 accompanied by gravel splattering, the sound of the ground shaking. They saw the surroundings of the garden, which had been leveled to the ground, as cultivators dressed in black night clothing scuttled out. One after another, there were at least 100 over people surrounding the high stage which Yi-Ching Luo was standing on, tightly encircled. And those 30 to 40 people who had originally fallen onto the ground also climbed up. They laughed maniacally as they walked behind Yi Fengru, as they stared at Yi-Ching Luo viciously, as though they were looking at the meat on the chopping board. Yi-Ching Luo recognized these people at one glance. Weren't they the bunch who kept singing a different tune to the crowd, trying to incite the crowd's rhythm, and kept humiliating Yi-Ching Luo? Yi Fengru laughed loudly, and as he laughed, he coughed violently. Even after coughing out blood, he still couldn't stop laughing. Yi-Ching Luo, did you really think that I didn't have any tricks up my sleeves? So what if they are sky mystic overlords? Against them, can you still survive? Yi-Ching Luo didn't respond to Yi Fengru's words. She narrowed her eyes, as she carefully sized up the rows of black-robed men in front of her, who were obviously well-trained. This sizing up made Yi-Ching Luo had a huge shock. These killers, over 100 of them, were all Earth Mystic grade and above. The highest profound rank has already reached the 8th level of the Earth profound rank. Where did these experts come from? Yi-Ching Luo had long guessed that it was impossible for Yi Fengru to come to the succession ceremony alone. The group of murderous killers who were constantly singing a different tune were Yi Fengru's men. But what Yi-Ching Luo did not expect was, apart from the group of assassins in the field, and there were so many teams with such powerful strength, it was impossible for Yi Fengru to find so many powerful helpers. Behind him, someone must be helping him. Or perhaps, it was exploitation. Profound practitioners of the Earth Profound Realm. In the Nirvana realm, he could be said to be the target of all the major forces and clans. That person was able to train so many Earth Xian practitioners into such a well-trained team. From this, it could be seen that the strength of that person could not be underestimated. Yi-Ching Luo vigilantly searched for the leader among the 100 of them. However, he swept his gaze across everyone. He didn't see anyone who looked like the boss. Chapter 2092. This time round, the historians won't be coming. Yi Fengru gave an eerie sneer. Of course, if you still have the ability, and unleash the power which exceeds Nirvana realm's limit, then there's a possibility to summon the historians. His reply made Yi-Ching Luo's heart shiver. Her question just now was just a test. She really managed to find out the truth. These were all earth profound cultivators and above, not people from Nirvana realm. They came from Nirvana realm and above, a certain realm cultivator. Previously from Old Man Tsang, Dmo Xian and Yi Qian and the others, Yi Qing Luo had a rough understanding of the different realms levels. Nirvana realm should be the lowest realm among all the realms. Those realms outside of Nirvana realm, such as the Dark Forces, Godless Island and the Upper Realm etc. The combined power of these places was much higher than Nirvana realm by many times. These 100 over black-robed men were not from Nirvana realm, and were all earth profound cultivators, so she wasn't surprised at all. But, she wasn't surprised. She was curious. Curious which realm these people were from outside of Nirvana realm. The only thing she was sure of was, these 100 over people were absolutely not from the Dark Forces. They didn't have the profound Yin Qi from the Dark Forces on them. The only common point with the Dark Forces was these black-robed men's imposing manner was the same as the Dark Forces, disgusting. Yi Qing Luo even probed out a question. Yi Fengru knew that she was unable to use the power of her profound jade heart. More accurately, he knew that her profound energy was obstructed. He knew that she couldn't release the power which could attract the Heaven Tao law. Looked like these people had done a thorough investigation on her. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly, as her lips curled into a teasing cold arc, raising her brows at Yi Fengru. Your preparation work is so sufficient, looks like you've made up your mind to deal with me. Yi Fengru sneered, at least you know your own limits. He knew Yi Qing Luo's sinister and cunning, dragging the time would definitely give her a chance to turn the tables. He bellowed furiously, all of you, go kill Yi Qing Luo. The rest of you, follow me to kidnap all these old fogies away. Those killers who were originally mixed in with the guests laughed sinisterly as they raised the weapons in their hands, charging towards Yi Qing Luo. Immediately following that, those 100 over earth profound cultivators also unleashed their valiant imposing manner as they surrounded Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo could tell from these people's attacks earlier. The Earth Xian experts of the Nirvana realm were not on the same level as these people. Their battle techniques, attack speed, and aura far surpassed those of the Nirvana realm. Over 100 people swarmed forward. Even if she was a Sky Xian supreme martial artist, she would not be able to hold on for long. Sister! Yi Fengyu shouted in panic. He was just about to ride on Shiju and rush down. A beam of dark light blocked his way. Yi Fengru's malevolent face appeared in front of Yi Fengyu. My good eighth brother, we've never crossed hands before. Today, second brother shall see, after not seeing you for so many days, just what kind of realm has eighth brother grown to. Yi Fengru's palm wind moved, as an irresistible profound energy directly pressed down on Yi Fengyu's face. Yi Fengyu's expression congealed, as his legs tightened on Shiju, as he backhanded a palm strike. Both palms met, as the air instantly exploded into bursts of profound waves. Chapter 2093. Yi Fengru looked at Yi Fengyu in astonishment. You're already at the Earth Profound Realm. Yi Fengyu's face was a bit pale. He placed one hand on Shiju's back and tried hard to adjust his breathing. Second brother, not everyone is standing in the same spot. No matter what happens, you should look forward. If you keep binding yourself and living in the past, you will never be able to walk out. He was hinting at something. Yi Fengru naturally understood. After second brother kills that little slut Yi Qing Luo, second brother will look forward properly. Yi Fengru's eyes were covered with black qi, a piercingly cold light flashed. He pounced at Yi Fengyu again. Yi Fengyu furrowed his brows and suppressed the discomfort in his body. He evaded Yi Fengru's attack. Second brother, don't be so stubborn. Don't you know that you're not only destroying yourself, you're also destroying the Three Springs sect? Without Qianqian, I have lost everything. Other than Chan, I don't want anything else. It would be even better if they were destroyed. Destroying it is even better. Yi Fengru howled madly. Yi Fengyu's complexion became increasingly pale. Even his lips had become sickly pale. Yi Qingluo, who was surrounded by over 100 top exponents, started to find it strenuous. The problem with the profound heart jade caused her profound strength to only be able to be controlled at the border of the sky profound realm. A profound sky sovereign expert did indeed have the ability to fight against 100. However, facing these high-level profound practitioners that came from other planes, even if she could release the power of her profound jade heart without restraint, she might not be able to gain the slightest bit of advantage in the hands of these 100 or so people. Not to mention that his strength was currently being suppressed by the profound jade heart. Yi Qingluo's situation was getting more and more dangerous. Too many things had happened recently. Yi Qingluo didn't even have the time to refine the pills. Because of this, the returning Heaven Yuan Serene Grass pill was not refined. The few sacred beasts in her family were still in a state of growth. Now, only Shiju was able to fight. However, Shiju was protecting Yi Fengyu. Could it be, asking Old Man Tsang to appear and help? Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips, her heart was in a tangle. She was still unable to identify the origins of these people. If they rashly let Old Man Tsang appear, once he attracted the attention of these people, the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet might not be able to be kept. Bang! Just as Yi Qingluo was pondering over this, a person's weapon had already landed right in front of her. In front of Yi Qingluo, there was a flash of saber light and sword shadows. Yi Qingluo flicked her fingers and the glower flame fan collided with that weapon. Gotcha! The man's weapon broke. Sharp wind blades shot out from the glowing flame fan and sliced through the neck of the attacker without any hesitation. Yi Qingluo didn't stop at all as a thick profound energy burst forth from the glower flame fan, forcing those people who were surrounding her to retreat. She got a chance to catch her breath and looked up at the two figures flying in the sky. Yi Fengyu rode on Shiju, constantly fighting with Yi Fengru. No, to be more precise, Yi Fengyu didn't actually try to kill Yi Fengru. Although his attacks were fierce, he only had the thought of knocking Yi Fengru out, not taking his life. On the contrary, Yi Fengru's every attack was fatal. After all, Yi Fengyu's temperament was still immature. He still couldn't kill his own brother. What's more, the injuries on his body had not yet healed. When he crossed hands with Yi Fengru, he was at a disadvantage. As expected. Just as Yi Qingluo was worried about Yi Fengyu, Yi Fengru suddenly flashed and shifted behind Yi Fengyu. Chapter 2094. Little Yu. Yi Qingluo suddenly jumped up, her fingertips quickly shot out the glower flame fan like a spiral. Yi Fengyu immediately turned around, only to see Yi Fengru's blade coming down. Clang, just as the blade was within a fist's distance. The glower flame fan was like a burning fire elf, colliding with that long blade. Yi Fengru only felt his arm go numb, the long blade fell to the ground. Yi Fengyu quickly retreated on Shiju, the feeling of picking his life back from the edge of death made him gasp for breath. Luckily his sister saved him. Thinking of his sister, Yi Fengyu immediately lowered his head to look at Yi Qingluo's direction. This look, Yi Fengyu's pupils, suddenly constricted. Yi Qingluo then jumped up and threw the glower flame fan in her hand towards Yi Fengyu. His back was exposed in front of the group of black-clothed men. How would the black-robed men let go of such a good opportunity? Immediately one by one flocked forward, the profound chi waves in the air, gradually forming a twisted ripple. The moment Yi Qingluo threw out the glower flame fan, she reacted quickly, trying to avoid the black-robed men who sneak attacked from behind. But no matter how fast she was, Because of the action of throwing out the glower flame fan, she was a step too slow. Swoosh, the blade light grazed her back. Her robe was cut, a bright red blood mark appeared on Yiqing Luo's fair skin. Yi Fengyu's eyes widened, roared out, "Sister!" Yiqing Luo groaned, knitted her brows, and raised a palm wind. The palm was strong, like a surging wave, roaring angrily towards the group of sneak attackers. The black-robed men screamed, fell to the ground one after another, unable to get up. Yiqing Luo raised her head, looked coldly at Yi Fengyu. "Shut up, let me see your courage as the Three Springs sect's patriarch, don't let me down." After saying that, she didn't look at Yi Fengyu again. Carrying her injured body, she once again rushed into the group of black-robed men. Yiqing Luo was wearing a red robe. Yi Fengyu couldn't see the wound on her back, how much blood was flowing. But he knew, Yiqing Luo's injury was definitely not shallow. It was him, he was the one who injured his sister. If his sister hadn't done it to save him. It was impossible for Big Sister to be ambushed by those people. Yi Fengyu clenched his fists tightly, the veins on his forehead bulging. In his ears, it was as if Yiqing Luo's words were still ringing, "Don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. Don't let me down." That was right. He could not let his sister down. He had already made up his mind that from now on, it would be his turn to protect his sister. But today, for the sake of someone who hurt her, she got hurt, from the moment Yi Fengyu had hurt his sister. Yi Fengyu was no longer his second brother. It was his enemy. He had said that he would protect his sister. "I want to be my sister's most solid support. No one is allowed to hurt my sister." Yi Fengyu's eyes burned with an intense desire to fight. The way he looked at Yi Fengyu became ruthless and filled with killing intent. Yi Fengyu was also taken aback by this look. Yi Fengyu snorted disdainfully, "My good eighth brother, you can't stand seeing that little bastard injured. I say, don't tell me you like that little bastard." Yi Fengyu didn't answer, the battle intent in his body continued to rise. "That's your sister." Chapter 2095. Luan, Yi Fengyu didn't even have time to say it. Boom! A violent fluctuation of Xian qi rushed towards Yi Fengyu like a hot knife through butter. Yi Fengyu was still teasing Yi Fengyu when he saw Yi Fengyu suddenly attacking him. That powerful Xian qi was obviously trying to take his life. Yi Fengyu's face changed and wanted to avoid it. But it was too late. The palm strike, filled with rage, landed heavily on Yi Fengyu's chest. Yi Fengyu was like a broken kite, flew out and fell heavily on the ground, spitting out blood. He stared at Yi Fengyu in disbelief. The boy who had always been a yes man actually dared to fight with him. Actually really wanted to kill. "No one is allowed to speak ill of my sister." Yi Fengyu's angry voice was covered with ice. Anger, monstrous anger, burned in his heart. He couldn't wait to completely burn everything that hurt Yiqing Luo. Yi Fengyu gritted his teeth, then suddenly let out a hearty laugh. "I just said a few words about that little bastard, and you really want to take my life. And you still dare to say that you don't have any improper thoughts about that little bastard?" His eyes were scarlet, and he couldn't stop laughing. "Yi Fengyu, that lowly bastard has a whole bunch of different men by her side. You alone aren't enough to enter her eyes, right?" Ha ha ha, Yi Fengyu's laughter. It was extremely harsh, piercing the murderous intent in Yi Fengyu's eyes. He flipped his palm and a long sword, unknowingly appeared in his palm. He rolled up a sword wave and gently waved it. The sword light was like a blooming firework, layer by layer, wave by wave rippled in the air. Yi Fengyu's pupils contracted, the smile on his face also froze. That sword power, followed the air, surged and shot straight. blocking all of Yi Fengru's escape routes. This is... Yi Fengru was terrified to the extreme, and he kept shrinking back. Yi Fengru's eyes were cold, murderous intent filled his eyes. The sword light in his hand crisscrossed, without any intention of mercy. Bang bang bang, boom boom boom, the sword power was full of power, the ground shook, under the sword chi, a thin crack appeared. Ah! Yi Fengru let out a terrified scream. He had nowhere to run, nowhere to run. She could only close her eyes and scream in fear. The strong wind brushed against his face like a sharp blade, constantly cutting his face. His body felt like it was being swept up by the sword wave and was about to be devoured by it. But, after that powerful wave of chi swept past, Yi Fengru didn't feel the pain of being torn to shreds like he had imagined. He was overjoyed. Could it be that someone had come to save him? Yi Fengru's eyes snapped open, and he looked around with wild joy. The smile on his face froze again. There was no one around him. There was no so-called rescuer. He half knelt on the ground. The ground around him was densely packed with cracks like a spider web. It was the mark left by the sword wave. Yi Fengru didn't kill him. The feeling of thinking that he was going to die, but being rescued from the jaws of death instantly surged into his heart. Yi Fengru lay limp on the ground, gasping for breath. He was overjoyed. As expected, Yi Fengru couldn't bear to kill him. Yi Fengru, that silly boy, still had affection for the Yi family in his heart. He couldn't bear to, and didn't dare. The feeling of surviving a disaster. And the feeling of being sure that Yi Fengru didn't dare to kill him. Chapter 2096. Yi Fengru, you are the one who is dirty, don't think that everyone is as dirty as you. The young man's immature voice was filled with a cold murderous intent as he said it word by word. Yi Fengru was stunned as he raised his head stiffly and looked at the young man who was riding on the back of a black leopard with a long sword in his hand. The young man's aura was majestic, his navy blue brocade robe was fluttering in the strong wind. Yi Fengru suddenly had an ominous premonition spreading in his heart. Sister is right about one thing, a person's heart is dirty, whatever he sees, is dirty. Yi Fengru said coldly, I want to verify the truth of this sentence. Yi Fengru, let me dig open your heart and see if your heart is dirty. Just as he finished his words, Yi Fengru's figure had already appeared in front of Yi Fengru. He raised his long sword and pointed it at Yi Fengru. Do you know why I didn't kill you now? Because I want to torture you. He said it very slowly, word by word, enunciated very clearly. The long sword in his hand, bit by bit, scratched Yi Fengru's skin. The cold touch faintly felt a stab of pain. There was a warm liquid, seeping out from the stab of pain. Yi Fengru didn't dare to move as he looked at Yi Fengru in horror. He couldn't believe that this overbearing, devil-like young man in front of him, could it be that easily soft-hearted, silly and stupid Yi Fengru? It's him. Stimulated Yi Fengru's growth. There was no time for Yi Fengru to think of other ways to escape. Yi Fengru's torturing long sword had already fallen on his body. Powerless to resist. The pain was unbearable. After Yi Qingluo was injured, she fought more and more bravely. Out of the 100 over black-robed men, there were only 60 over people left. The ground was littered with corpses, blood flowing everywhere. The remaining 60 over people, the more they fought, the more terrified they became. At this moment, their hearts were filled with curses. How could this young lady be so abnormal? One person, just one person, she killed half of them. This young lady was as cunning as a loach. Over 100 people tried to catch her but still couldn't. Most importantly, the fan in the girl's hand was too strange and terrifying. In the blink of an eye, there would always be one or two people who fell stiffly to the ground. Even in death, they still did not understand. How did they die? They finally understood why their lord had sent so many people to capture a 15-year-old girl. More than 60 people did not dare to act rashly. Yiqing Luo gripped her glower flame fan tightly as she scanned the surroundings vigilantly. That beautiful face that could topple cities was extremely pale. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. She tensed her body and emotions, not daring to relax in the slightest. In the eyes of those 60 over black-robed men, Yiqing Luo's expression was calm. Apparently she could still fight for another few hundred rounds. But Yiqing Luo herself knew. She was about to run out of energy. She was just a person with a mortal body. Not to mention that they were facing so many profounders from other planes. It was already incredible that she could hold on until now. She could not reveal the fact that she had exhausted all of her strength. She could not give the other party any chance to take advantage of her. 60 over black-robed men, bit by bit, narrowed the encirclement of Yiqing Luo. They exchanged a look. She could not drag on any longer. Chapter 2097. Yiqing Luo was indeed abnormal. But after such a long battle, Yiqing Luo was more or less exhausted. They didn't believe it. They couldn't even deal with a 15-year-old young lady after so many years. Go! One of the black-robed men gave his order. 60 over black-robed men covered the sky as they charged forward. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened when she heard that word. She gripped the glower flame fan tightly as her eyes squinted, reflecting a cold murderous intent. The profound qi in her body revolved wildly. The young lady's red dress was like a dancing butterfly. Between the fluttering wings, the layers of profound qi ripples in the air continued to spread to the surroundings. This wave of profound qi swept. Those 60 over black-robed men's expressions congealed. They were just about to retreat. However, the spreading xian waves suddenly disappeared in an instant. They were stunned. Yiqing Luo's profound qi had started to become unstable. Could it be? Yiqing Luo couldn't hold on any longer. This knowledge made the black-robed men ecstatic. They immediately raised their swords and charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. How could they possibly miss such a great opportunity? Clang! Those few black-robed men who charged forward had yet to get close to Yiqing Luo. They only felt a numbing sensation on their arms. Their weapons left their hands. Following that, they could only see a red shadow appearing in front of them. They heard the sound of a fan opening and closing. The next moment, their bodies turned cold. After that, they lost all feeling. But those black-robed men who charged towards Yiqing Luo saw it with their own eyes. Those few black-robed men who were in front. Inexplicably, their limbs split. Blood splattered on their bodies. This scene made those black-robed men's faces revealed a horrified expression. This cruel method was done by this 15-year-old young lady. They didn't even see her make a move. As it turned out, the fluctuation of profound qi just now was caused by the sudden disappearance of qi. Yiqing Luo did it on purpose, intentionally luring them to take the bait. Dozens of black-robed men became timid once again. It was a bloody scene. Even if it was them, they might not be able to do it expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo panted lightly as she quietly kept the silver threads back into the glower flame fan. She glanced at Yifengyu from the corner of her eyes. Seeing Yifengyu's current state, as well as Yifengru lying in a pool of blood, she relaxed. From the looks of it, Yifengyu had completely transformed. As long as Yifengyu could pass this trial today, it would be of great help to his future growth. Yiqing Luo withdrew her gaze and no longer worried about her brother. She's deliberately mystifying us. Look at her hand. Suddenly, one of the black-clothed men roared. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Yiqing Luo's hand, which was holding the glower flame fan, was stained with traces of blood. It was a thin trail of blood. The silver threads were clearly exposed to their eyes. It was silver wire. Yiqing Luo made use of the silver threads to kill those black-robed men without anyone knowing. This knowledge gave the black-clothed people confidence. They looked at each other. Suddenly, a few black shadows scuttled towards Yiqing Luo. Following that, the other black-clothed men also dashed over quickly. They stared vigilantly at that strange fan in Yiqing Luo's hands. Stop! Suddenly, a soft but flat and emotionless voice resounded throughout the entire garden. This voice made the black-clothed men stop in their tracks. In the air, there was a ding-dang-dang sound. When they fixed their eyes on it. Chapter 2098. The young lady's figure was petite, her head only reached Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Dressed in a pink long dress, a string of black bell bracelet on her wrist. Lolita's face, Lolita's appearance. But her pair of eyes were extremely sluggish, empty and lifeless. Shadow, they are very dangerous, stand behind me. Yiqing Luo immediately pressed on Mo Yuying's shoulder, only you came. Where are they? They are still behind. Mo Yuying replied calmly, I sensed their presence so I came over first. Yiqing Luo's hand, which was pressing on Mo Yuying's shoulder, stiffened. You. The corners of Mo Yuying's lips suddenly twitched. Although the smile was stiff. But Yiqing Luo could tell. Mo Yuying was smiling. This was the second time Yiqing Luo saw a different expression on Mo Yuying's face since the first time she met her. Although the smile was very stiff and awkward. But at least it was a smile. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to regain her senses from this smile. Mo Yuying had already turned her head and looked at those black-robed men who were frozen on the spot. Her face had already resumed its expressionless and stiff look. How dare you, Nirvana realm is a place where you can come. Mo Yuying looked at the black-robed men blankly. The black-robed men trembled. The next moment, all of them knelt on the ground. Island Sage. The black-robed men's forehead was pressed against the ground as they trembled. Island Sage. This group of black-robed men called Mo Yuying as Island Sage. What was going on? After Mo Yuying appeared, Yiqing Luo had some guesses in her heart. But when she saw this group of black-robed men really kneeling on the ground, being extremely respectful, Yiqing Luo was still stunned. Mo Yuying was actually a big boss. And a super big boss. Island Sage, just by hearing this name, she knew that he was absolutely a big shot. Why were there two of them beside her? They were all heaven-defying existences. Look, one Long Yunjian, that was a human dragon. Look at Xiao Jin, he was the Heaven Realm's Tian family successor. Beside her. Which great god was there? Why did she feel that although she had always been the boss, but her actual status was the lowest? If Yiqing Luo's words were to be known by everyone, everyone would definitely roll their eyes and say, you're the future empress, your status is miles ahead of us. Mo Yuying tilted her head and looked at them blankly, you still know that I am your island sage. Island sage, this is the island master's order, we also. The men in black wanted to cry but had no tears. If they had known that the person they were going to capture today was a friend of the island sage, they would not have come even if they were killed by the island master. The island sage was 1,000 times more terrifying than the island master. Mo Yuying shook the bell in her hand. The crisp tinkling sounds were extremely pleasing to the ear. But in the ears of the black-clothed men, it sounded like a fatal sound. They covered their ears in horror and began to tremble. All of them kowtowed with all their might, desperately begging for mercy. However, Mo Ying's expression did not change at all. She just tilted her head and didn't move. If not for those lifeless eyelashes that occasionally fluttered a few times. Yiqing Luo really felt that the Mo Ying standing in front of her was an exquisitely crafted wooden puppet. Shadow, leave them alive. Yiqing Luo realized Mo Ying's way of doing things. Although she wasn't sure what effect the tinkling of the bell had on those black-clothed men. But Yiqing Luo was very clear. The bell continued ringing. Chapter 2099. Mo Ying turned her head sideways and took a look at Yiqing Luo. After a while, he slowly spat out a word, "Oh." As soon as he finished speaking, the ringing stopped. The black-clothed men, who were howling in pain, kowtowing and rolling on the ground, collapsed into a pool of blood. The bell stopped ringing. The men in black immediately kowtowed, "Lord Island Sage, please spare us. Lord Island Sage, please spare us." Mo Ying ignored them. Instead, he moved his body away. Yiqing Luo walked out from behind her. Slowly, he walked to the front of the men in black. "You are from the Godless Island." Yiqing Luo's voice was very calm. This wasn't a question but a statement. From the moment they shouted "Island Master," Yiqing Luo had already guessed their identities. Godless Island, what kind of power was this? Why did they have to team up with people related to her time and again to deal with her? The men in black kneeled on the ground and shivered. No one dared to speak. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. When Mo Ying saw this, her tender little hands hugged Yiqing Luo's arm as she snorted coldly. This cold humph made Yiqing Luo unable to restrain her laughter. His face was calm and his eyes were empty. However, she did her best to pout her lips and put on an angry expression as she snorted coldly. She looked extremely adorable. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pinched her cheek. Mo Ying raised her head in confusion. Her round, big, and extremely beautiful eyes blinked. However, there was not the slightest bit of spirit in his eyes. Yiqing Luo sighed softly. She was clearly such a cute girl. On Mo Ying's body, just how many more secrets were hidden? Island Sage. When the black-robed men heard Mo Ying's cold snort, they trembled in fear. As soon as they spoke, Yiqing Luo's attention returned back to the black-robed men. He caught a glimpse of Yiqing Luo's expression. The man in black who was kneeling at the front responded quickly, "Yes, yes, we are from Godless Island." This attitude made Yiqing Luo puzzled. On Godless Island, after all, it was the island master who had a higher status. Or was it Mo Ying, the island sage, who had a higher status? "Your island lord, what's the reason for you to come over?" Yiqing Luo cast aside all the other thoughts. The most important thing now was to understand Godless Island's intention. The black-clothed man was startled. Soon after, they looked at each other with troubled expressions. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. "Since you refuse to say, why not listen to me?" The men in black lowered their heads, not daring to speak. "I've come into contact with the people from the Godless Island a few times. You have cooperated with the underworld forces, and your target should be me. Now, he's using Yifengru to brazenly appear in front of the representatives of the Western continent's major powers. Clearly, he has no intention of hiding his identity." Yiqing Luo paused for a moment as her eyes flashed past a thought-provoking deep meaning. Although Godless Island is the #1 evil force in the Nirvana realm, it is the #1 island in the Nirvana realm. However, Godless Island should also belong to a force outside the Nirvana realm. Establishing the island in the Nirvana realm was already a very bold move, and it was very likely that the slightest mistake would cause it to be destroyed by the Heaven Tao. Now, is Godless Island planning to participate in the Dark Forces' plan so that the Heavenly Law historian will notice the existence of Godless Island? The black-robed men shook their heads hard. Their bodies kept on trembling as they took a careful look at Mo Ewing by the side, before answering in a trembling voice, We don't know anything, we're only following orders. Chapter 2100. Per Island Lord's orders, to cooperate with Yi Feng Ru to sabotage you. Inheriting Three Springs Sect. The black-robed man replied with a trembling voice. Sabotage her Inheriting Three Springs Sect. What did her Inheriting Three Springs Sect have to do with Godless Island? Why did that old man want to sabotage Qing Lu as Three Springs Sect's patriarch? Mo Ewing popped her little head out from behind Yi Qing Luo and asked the question on her behalf. This. We don't know. The black-robed men shrunk their necks. Mo Ewing sneered unhappily again, You don't know. We really don't know. Island Sage, you know Island Lord's character very well, how would he possibly tell us the reason? Moreover, Island Lord's thoughts, we don't dare to guess. The black-robed men were so scared that they almost peed their pants. In their hearts, they all begged the Island Sage, who had an unpredictable temperament, not to vent his anger on them. Mo Ewing raised her wrist, her fingertips caressing the two furry little balls hanging on her shoulders. Her stiff and emotionless voice sounded faintly, Since that's the case, there's no point in keeping you two. Island Sage, spare us. Island Sage, spare us. Ding ding dang dang. The black-robed men's pleading voices were suppressed by the crisp ringing of the bell. Just a moment later, those black-robed men who were begging for mercy hugged their heads and banged their heads on the ground continuously. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips, looking at the expressionless young lady who was shaking the bell in her hand. Her pink lips moved, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She knew. Mo Ewing was worried about something. Since Mo Ewing didn't want her to know about those matters on Godless Island, she didn't ask. In just half an incense's time, these black-robed men all banged themselves to death on the ground. A thick blood stench filled the air. In the garden, other than the sounds created by Yi Feng Yu and Yi Feng Ru, there were no other sounds. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and looked towards Yi Feng Yu's direction. This look made Yi Qing Luo slightly surprised. Because Yi Feng Ru was lying on the ground, so abused that he couldn't be recognized. Yi Feng Ru's robe had already turned into strips under Yi Feng Yu's sword power. Not a single part of his body was intact. It was covered with scattered sword wounds. It was a ghastly sight. Blood covered Yi Feng Ru's entire body. Yi Feng Ru looked as if he had been soaked in blood. It was clear that Yi Feng Yu was ruthless. He looked at the expressionless youth riding on the Xian's back, who only had eyes for Yi Feng Ru. Although, this was a growth for Yi Feng Yu. However, Yi Qing Luo had never thought of cultivating him into a devil. Yi Feng Yu's current state. It was no different from turning into a demon. Yi Qing Luo took out 2 bottles from the profound phoenix ring and passed it to Mo Ewing. He pointed at the representatives of the major forces around him, who were either unconscious or had their eyes wide open. Mo Ewing understood and took the bottle of medicine to cure those people. Yi Qing Luo took a step forward and walked towards Yi Feng Yu's direction. Xiao Yu. Her voice was a little cold, and her steps were extremely slow. Yi Qing Luo could see it clearly. The young man's slender body stiffened when he heard her call. If you can still hear my voice, then turn around and look at me. Yi Qing Luo said calmly. The young man's stiff body seemed to be hesitating. Chapter 2101. The youth's young and tender face was no longer as stern and sinister as before. A pair of black eyes blinked in panic and helplessness. He looked like a child who had yet to grow up. He had done something wrong and was standing there uneasily, waiting for his punishment. Through him, Yiqing Luo looked at the ground, at Yi Fengru who had long lost his human form. Yi Fengyu noticed her gaze. Subconsciously, he moved in front of Yi Fengru, trying to block Yiqing Luo's line of sight. Yiqing Luo looked at him indifferently. You don't want sister to see him. Yi Fengyu was silent for a long time, then nodded. Why? Yiqing Luo remained calm. Yi Fengyu lowered his eyes. His fingers, which were gripping the long sword, were so tightly clenched that his fingertips had turned white. She waited for a long time, but Yi Fengyu did not reply. Yiqing Luo muttered to herself, You don't want me to see you make Yi Fengru into this state. Are you afraid that I will be afraid of you? Yi Fengyu's pupils constricted, and he didn't reply. Instead, he lowered his head even more. Yiqing Luo slowly walked towards him. Yi Fengyu wanted to retreat. However, after Shi Ju saw its master, its feet stopped moving. If not for the fact that Yi Fengyu was still on its back, it was afraid that it would transform into a little black cat and pounce into its master's arms. Yiqing Luo stood in front of Shi Ju. She looked up at Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu lowered his head and coincidentally met Yiqing Luo's line of sight. There was an indescribable sense of panic in his heart. The sword in his hand fell to the ground in shock. Clang! The sound of the long sword falling to the ground was extremely crisp. The blood on the ground stained the sword. Yi Fengyu was at a loss of what to do. He cautiously glanced at Yiqing Luo's expression and wanted to get down from the seal's back to pick up the long sword. However, Shi Ju didn't give him a chance to get down. When those who were awake saw this, they couldn't help but admire Yiqing Luo even more. The scene of Yi Fengyu brutally beating up Yi Fengru was clearly witnessed by all of them. His aura was strong and majestic. It had the aura of a sect. But, when facing Yiqing Luo, he was like an obedient little brother. The flames on his body were completely restrained. It was as if he had done something wrong and was caught by his elders. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the atmosphere between the two of them was a very normal sibling relationship. On the other side, Yiqing Luo had already walked over and bent over to pick up the long sword which was stained with blood. She took out a handkerchief and wiped the blood off the sword bit by bit. Without raising his head, he said, Little you, my hands are stained with a lot of blood. Many lives have been lost. I have also used many cruel methods to torture my enemies. She paused, and the hand that was wiping the sword also stopped. Are you afraid of me like this? I'm not afraid. Yi Fengyu replied without hesitation. As soon as the words came out, Yi Fengyu was stunned. He stared at Yiqing Luo in a daze with his eyes wide open. Suddenly, he understood the reason why Yiqing Luo asked this question. His nervous and uneasy heart calmed down at this moment. Hearing Yi Fengyu's unhesitating reply, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a faint smile. The amount of blood and lives I'm stained with is not something you can imagine. But you're not afraid of me like this, then. You've merely taught a lesson to the scum who insulted me. Why would I be afraid of you and blame you? Hearing his sister's words, Yi Fengyu's eyes lit up. Chapter 2102. Yiqing Luo took out the sword that she had wiped clean and handed it over to him. The smile on her lips was extremely gentle. Yi Fengyu took the sword with trembling hands. Sister. He pursed his thin lips and held the sword tightly. I will definitely become the patriarch of Three Springs sect, and become your most solid backing. Whether Yiqing Luo was his biological sister or not. In his heart, Yiqing Luo was his sister. All the hard work he had done. All in order to better protect his sister. Just like how his sister protected him every time. Yiqing Luo saw the determination in his eyes. She smiled and nodded gently. I believe in little you. In future, sister will have to rely on little you. After the crisis was resolved, the atmosphere in the garden became more relaxed because of this. Those representatives who woke up after taking the antidote felt like they had a new lease of life. They were extremely puzzled. Why were all the forces from other planes running to the West continent recently? What was going on? And it seemed like most of them were targeting Yiqing Luo. Everyone suddenly recalled the news that old Grand Madam and Yi Fengru had revealed not long ago. Yiqing Luo was not from the Yi family. Then, Yiqing Luo's mysterious father, could he be some big shot? Otherwise, how could Yiqing Luo have such a strong innate talent? And attracted the attention of so many forces from other planes? Just as everyone was imagining a melodramatic drama that couldn't get any more melodramatic. Suddenly, someone noticed something and shouted angrily, "Eighth young Master Yi, be careful." Everyone was shocked by this shout. Yiqing Luo heard this and quickly reached out to grab Yi Fengyu's arm. She exerted force and pulled Yi Fengyu from Shiju's back to her back. Shiju quickly bent its limbs and laid flat on the ground. At the same time, a piercingly cold profound ray pierced over. Yiqing Luo's reaction was too fast. That profound ray pierced through thin air. But the profound ray did not stop because of this. Instead, it pierced towards Yiqing Luo's direction with irresistible force. Yiqing Luo snorted coldly as her fingers clenched tightly and threw a punch forward. Bam! A loud sound followed Yiqing Luo's punch. A body covered in blood rolled out. It was Yi Fengru. When Yi Fengyu saw Yi Fengru lying in a pool of blood, his eyes flashed with disbelief. He had personally turned Yi Fengru into something unrecognizable. Naturally, he knew that it was impossible for Yi Fengru to still be able to fight. But Yi Fengru actually still had the strength to take advantage of the opportunity to assassinate them. Everyone looked at Yi Fengru, who had fallen to the ground and was unable to get up. Seeing that Yiqing Luo and her brother were safe and sound, they heaved a sigh of relief. Everyone's gazes once again fell on Yi Fengru. They were also astonished. Yi Fengru was injured to this extent, yet he still had the strength to fight. Yiqing Luo, you slut, I'm going to kill you. Kill you. Yi Fengru fell to the ground, but he didn't settle down. He twisted his head ferociously and roared through gritted teeth. In his eyes, wisps of black gas flashed faintly. The denser it was, the more he struggled. After scolding Yiqing Luo with that furious bellow, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. His mouth opened and closed again, but there was no sound. But, from the shape of Yi Fengru's mouth, Yi Fengru shouted the two words, Qianqian. Zi Qianqian again. Yiqing Luo's slender brows knitted tightly as something flashed past her mind. She seemed to be about to grab that thing. Chapter 2103. That figure's speed was simply too fast. And it was filled with a killing intent. Yiqing Luo had yet to stop it. Carrying a strong practitioner's powerful palm wind, it mercilessly struck towards Yi Fengru, who was lying on the ground, unable to move. No, a shrill scream was heard. On the stage, a slender figure dashed towards Yi Fengru's direction. Bam! The palm wind landed heavily on the figure that had suddenly appeared. That person's body flew out weakly and fell beside Yi Fengru, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Bei Ming family. Yiqing Luo's throat moved. Just as that person dashed out to block in front of Yi Fengru, Yiqing Luo recognized that it was the Bei Ming family. Yi Fengru's birth mother, the Bei Ming family. She was a beautiful and intelligent woman. Yi Fengyu was also shocked by the sudden turn of events. The young man's slender body leaned slightly behind Yi Qingluo. A pair of anxious and uneasy eyes looked towards Yi Fengru's direction in a daze. Everyone was shocked that the Bei Ming family who suddenly rushed out to save Yi Fengru. Yi Qingluo had already set her sights on that person who attacked Yi Fengru. If she didn't hear wrongly, she seemed to have heard that person call out "Island Sage" just now. Which meant the person who attacked Yi Fengru was from Godless Island. Not far from Yi Fengru stood a hunched, extremely skinny old man. The old man's eyes stared at Yi Fengru, his hands clenched into fists. His face was filled with a vexed expression. Vexed? Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes in interest. This old man was vexed, not being able to kill Yi Fengru. Wu Sha. Mo Ying's stiff voice rang from behind Yi Qingluo. She expressionlessly walked to Yi Qingluo's side, her empty eyes locked onto that old man. Wu Sha. Yi Qingluo had seen him before. She had seen this Wu Sha beside Godless Island's young master island lord Yi Qian. That time when they entered Godless Island's array. It was this Wu Sha's doing. Wu Sha greets Lord Island Sage. Wu Sha bowed respectfully and was extremely respectful. Mo Ying replied, that old man really put in a lot of effort. In order to kidnap Qingluo, he even sent you out. Wu Sha bowed even lower, Island Sage, please don't misunderstand. This subordinate is only here to monitor the situation of the islanders and will not interfere with this order. You think that after leaving Godless Island for so many years, this holy lord has become so stupid that you can fool me? Mo Ying sneered. These words came out of her mouth in a flat tone. Although her tone was rigid. However, that kind of aura and the coldness in his words gave off a bone-chilling feeling. Wu Sha knelt on the ground, this subordinate does not dare. Mo Ying's empty eyes swept past Wu Sha. She did not speak and did not ask Wu Sha to get up. She allowed Wu Sha to kneel on the ground. Wu Sha was furious, but he did not dare to offend the island sage. Yi Qingluo looked at Wu Sha who was kneeling on the ground and didn't say anything. Wu Sha's appearance made Yi Qingluo have some calculations in her heart. Wu Sha's motive was obviously to kill Yi Fengru. That meant to say that Yi Fengru had some secret on him which the Godless Island wanted to destroy. Otherwise, Wu Sha would not specially appear and take action against Yi Fengru under everyone's watchful eyes. Even if Wu Sha's reason was to use Island Sage, which was Mo Ying's name. But Yi Qingluo understood. Wu Sha merely wanted to take Yi Fengru's life. She was curious. Chapter 2104. Mother, Mother. Yi Fengru's face was sprayed with blood by Bai Mingshi. The warm blood soaked his face. It also caused Yi Fengru's heart to suddenly feel a sharp pain. Bai Mingshi spat out a mouthful of blood, her eyes gradually lost focus. She struggled to adjust the focus, wanting to see her son clearly. But the feeling of powerlessness made her gradually want to close her eyes. Although Wu Sha's palm only used 50% of his strength. But Bai Mingshi was only a weak woman who didn't often cultivate. She couldn't withstand Wu Sha's palm. But Bai Mingshi didn't regret it. Her son was fine, as long as her son was fine. Mother, why did you block this palm for me? Why did you block it? Yi Fengru struggled to crawl to Bai Mingshi's side. He tightly grasped Bai Mingshi's hand, crying bitterly, Mother, Mother, don't close your eyes, I can save you. I'm a medicine master, I can save you. He frantically touched the ring in his hand. Several bottles of medicine were taken out. His hands were trembling as he desperately searched for healing pills. But every single bottle was filled with dark poison. Yifengru's heart was even more flustered, constantly rummaging for medicine bottles. His hands and body also began to tremble more and more. Ru. Bai Mingshi called Yifengru in a low voice. Yifengru's body stiffened, ignoring the blood all over his body, holding Bai Mingshi tightly. Mother, I'm here. Bai Mingshi leaned against his chest. Between the breath, there was a thick smell of blood. She couldn't tell whether it was Yifengru's or her own. She heard Yifengru call her mother over and over again, and felt the warmth of his palms. Bai Mingshi's heart was already filled with satisfaction. She wanted to laugh, but didn't have the strength to move her lips. In the end, she could only spit out a few weak breaths. Promise mother, don't take revenge, live well. For mother, you also have to live well. Bai Mingshi's breath was extremely weak, as if it would break at any moment. On Yifengru's face, there was no telling whether it was tears or blood. He hugged Lady Bai Ming tightly and said with a sobbing tone, I will live on. Mother, you have to live on too. Mother. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Yiqing Luo. That blood-soaked face looked like it had been soaked in a pool of blood. No matter how one looked at it, it was horrifying. Yiqing Luo. I know you can save my mother, I beg you. I beg you to save her. Yifengru seemed to have caught hold of a life-saving straw as he struggled to get up and wanted to kneel down towards Yiqing Luo. But his body was already riddled with wounds, and he was holding Lady Bai Ming, so he couldn't kneel at all. Yiqing Luo looked at him. Then, he looked at the Bai Ming clan in his arms. The expression on his face was calm. However, his heart was unable to calm down. No matter how wicked Yifengru was, he treated the Bai Ming clan with sincerity. Bai Ming clan. This lady's intelligence and accurate choice of side made Yiqing Luo not feel any antipathy towards her. However, she was no saint. The relationship between the mother and son was indeed touching. But Yiqing Luo would never forget that Yifengru had tried to kill her several times. I know I'm wrong, but my mother treats you sincerely. Yifengru wailed, I beg you to save my mother, I can use my life to exchange. Lady Bai Ming suddenly increased her strength as she clasped Yifengru's wrist. Chapter 2105. Yiqing Luo fixed her gaze on the Bai Ming clan. After a while, she moved her feet and walked towards her. Yifengru trembled as he raised his head to look at Yiqing Luo. The scarlet in his eyes and the lingering black aura gradually faded. Even though his face was covered in dirt and blood, Yiqing Luo could clearly see the pleading and helplessness on his face. Yiqing Luo, I beg you to save her. As long as you save her, I will do anything to repay you. Yifengru pleaded with a sobbing tone, if you want my life, you can take it. As long as you are willing to save my mother, save my mother. Yiqing Luo half squatted down, you are my prey, it's easy for me to take your life. Yifengru was stunned as tears flowed out of his eyes. Yiqing Luo, I know I have lost my mind, I shouldn't have done so many things to hurt you, but my mother doesn't know anything, she is wholeheartedly for you, for Three Springs sect, Yifengru. Yiqing Luo's cold voice interrupted Yifengru's crying. Her eyes were calm as she stared at Yifengru calmly. Didn't you say that Ziqianqian is your everything and losing Ziqianqian is equivalent to losing everything? She paused as her lips curled into a chilly arc. The arc was very shallow, but it also revealed some profound meaning. Yifengru's body stiffened as the expression on his face froze. Yifengru, have you ever thought about your mother and everything you did previously? Yiqing Luo smiled faintly as her gaze was like a torch, when you killed your father and forced the abdication, have you ever thought about your mother, that she is the concubine of Three Springs sect? Have you ever thought about what the outside world would say about her? When you joined forces with Yi Qing Qian and the Dark Forces, have you ever thought about your mother? Have you ever thought about what would happen to you and your mother if the rebellion failed? If you succeed, you will bear the name of a traitor and your mother will be condemned by the world. How will she live peacefully? If you fail, you will die, and not only will your mother die with you, she will also bear the blame. You disregarded everything and even your life to seek revenge on me for Zi Qianshan. Have you ever thought about your mother's position in Three Springs sect after losing you? Yi Qing Luo had yet to finish her words. Yi Fingru choked with sobs as he shook his head frantically. Don't say any more, don't say any more. Tears filled his face, mixed with the fresh blood. His entire face looked extremely comical. He hugged Lady Baiming tightly and cried until his voice was hoarse. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I was possessed. I shouldn't have done this, in this world. His only relative was his mother. It was the Baiming clan that had given him the peace he had grown up in the Three Springs sect, which was filled with internal strife and intrigue. It was the Baiming clan. In order for him to grow up in peace and not be bullied by the other concubines, he had to be submissive in front of the other concubines, tolerating everything. It was Baiming clan. Whenever he was injured while practicing cultivation, and no one cared for him, she would sneak into his courtyard to apply medicine and cheer him on. It was the Baiming clan. His mother was the kindest and most gentle mother in the world. For his mother, he worked hard to make himself more and more outstanding, using the mask of elegance and friendliness to deceive the concubines of other branches. He secretly developed his own forces. He was admitted into the Heavenly Academy with excellent results and entered the Heavenly Profound class. Through his cleverness and mask, making the concubines of other branches accept him. Such an outstanding existence. No one was aware of his ambition. All of this, it was all for his mother. But when was it? Chapter 2106. Yi Qing Luo remained calm. As for Yi Fingru, who was crying like a man in tears, she was not moved in the slightest. She lowered her eyes and looked at Baiming, who was gripping Yi Fingru's sleeves tightly, struggling to keep her eyes open, her lips trembling. She pursed her lips and held Baiming's other hand. Baiming's body temperature was already a bit cold. Yi Qing Luo revolved her profound energy and injected some profound qi into Bei Mingshi's body to protect his shattered heart meridians. Bei Mingshi held Yi Qing Luo's hand tightly, as her mouth moved agitatedly, wanting to say something. Don't talk anymore. If you drag on any longer, even Master Ghost Doctor won't be able to save you. Yi Qing Luo pushed her hand away so as not to disturb her transmission of profound qi. But she didn't use any strength. Baiming's grip on her hand tightened. Perhaps it was Yi Qing Luo's profound qi which helped the Baiming family to recover some of their energy. She panted heavily as she raised her head and looked at Yi Qing Luo with pleading eyes as she spoke in an extremely soft voice. Seventh Miss, listen to me. I. Her face grew paler and paler. Wusha's palm had indeed caused her internal organs to shatter. He did not close his eyes. It was her feelings for her son that had kept her going until now. Baiming's body was throbbing with pain. She endured the pain and continued with difficulty. I know my body the best. I want to beg, seventh young lady. Yi Qing Luo's action of transferring profound qi paused. Madame Bei Ming's breathing seemed to have stopped, as the hand which was holding Yi Qing Luo's hand, gradually twisted into a crooked shape. Yi Qing Luo was shocked and hurriedly revolved her profound qi to maintain the vitality of the Baiming clan. Seventh young lady, for the sake of my dedication to the Three Springs sect, spare Ru. Spare Ru-er's life. I'm willing to exchange something with you. Madame Bei Ming took a deep breath and tried her best to look at Yi-Ching Luo. 7th Miss, what happened that year? I actually know a little. If 7th Miss wants to know about your biological father. In the secret compartment in my room, there is something that 7th Miss wants. She stuttered. Yi-Ching Luo had to listen carefully to understand what she was saying. When the word biological father was mentioned, the expression on his face changed. Yi-Ching Luo's heart suddenly trembled. The Bai Ming clan knew what had happened back then. I'll use this to exchange for Ru-er's life. The depths of Lady Bai Ming's eyes had already gradually turned cloudy. Ru-er's sins will be repaid with my lowly life. Mother! Mother! Yi Fengru realized something. He hugged Lady Bai Ming and screamed, Mother, don't leave me behind. If you leave, what's the point of living? Mother, Ru-er. Dark North strove to raise his hand, wanting to touch Yi Fengru's face. Her eyes gradually became misty and unfocused. His lips opened and closed slightly, and he breathed out soundlessly, Promise me, to live, for the 7th Miss, for her. The last breath was getting lighter and lighter. Then, Bai Ming's hand landed heavily on the ground. In the end, he closed his eyes. Mother! Yi Fengru wept like a child next to Bai Mingshi's corpse. Yi-Ching Luo looked at her palm, at that powerless palm that slid down. His expressionless face changed a little. The Bai Ming clan was dead. Before she died, she used her own life to scheme against her. But she didn't have any temper at all. Bai Mingshi really doted on this son. In the end, she used her own life to exchange for Yi Fengru's life. Chapter 2107. Mother, Yi Fengru cried hoarsely. Her cries also caused everyone present to be moved. Even earlier, this young man had a fierce look, shouting to kill them, and even poison them. But seeing this scene, the crowd was still unable to condemn him at this moment. Yi-Ching Luo's vision was fixed on Yi Fengru. She noticed it. At the moment when Bai Ming clan breathed her last, something seemed to be pulled out from Yi Fengru's body. Recalling earlier Wuxia's action of trying to kill Yi Fengru, Yi-Ching Luo's eyes were filled with deep meaning, as she squinted her eyes. Following that, she slowly stood up, looking down at Yi Fengru who was kneeling on the ground, crying out in pain. Her calm voice had no ripples. Yi Fengru, Bai Ming clan used her life to exchange for your life, then. Next, whether you want to leave or stay, it's all up to you. The man who was carrying Bai Ming clan's corpse stiffened slightly. After a long time, Yi Fengru raised his blood-covered face. That pair of eyes filled with grief, pain, stared at Yi-Ching Luo without blinking. He wanted to rage. He wanted to blame Yi-Ching Luo. Bai Ming clan's death was caused by Yi-Ching Luo. But the words were at the tip of his tongue. But he couldn't spit out a single word. In his heart, he was very clear. It was him who caused the death of his mother. His mother died because of him. He wanted an outlet to vent the suppressed anger in his heart. But Yi Fengru was even clearer. This outlet absolutely could not be Yi-Ching Luo. I don't need you to give me an answer so quickly. How could Yi-Ching Luo not see the hatred in Yi Fengru's eyes? Now, she had no intention to kill Yi Fengru. Of course, if Yi Fengru still insisted on courting death, then she would not care about Bai Ming clan. But she would directly kill Yi Fengru to get rid of any future troubles. After all, in summary, Yi Fengru was indeed a trouble these few days. Before this, she had to go take a look first. Bai Ming clan's secret in exchange for Yi Fengru's life was it worth it? She had to tolerate Yi Feng-ru. Bring the Baiming clan back first. As for the burial, that's up to you. Yi Qingluo indifferently glanced at Yi Feng-ru. A medicine bottle, rolled to the side of Yi Feng-ru's feet. After the ceremony ends, then give me your answer. Yi Feng-ru's body was taut, and he lowered his head. His 5 fingers gripped tightly onto Baiming's robes. He tried his best to suppress the anger in his chest. Slowly, he picked up the bottle and held it in his palm. He tightened his arms, stiffly opened the bottle, and swallowed a pill without hesitation. Then, ignoring the wounds on his body, he hugged Baiming Shi and wobbled towards the Three Springs sect's backyard. No one stopped him. No one took a step forward. Yi Feng-ru's figure disappeared into the flattened garden. Everyone came back to their senses. 7th young mistress of the night, how could you let him leave just like that? He wants to kill you. This kind of ingrate, even if you soften your heart and let him go, he won't be grateful. Did you see the look in his eyes just now? It was as if he wanted to skin Yi's 7th young mistress alive. If it wasn't for his mother, he would be long dead. Everyone was extremely dissatisfied with Yi Feng-ru. Yi Qingluo smiled. Today is the day little Yu inherits the patriarch's position. It's not good to see blood. Chapter 2108. Was it really okay to lie so blatantly? However, Yi Qingluo didn't care about what those people were thinking. She pulled Yi Feng-yu in front of her and said, "Let's continue with the succession ceremony. Hurry up." As she spoke, she glanced sideways and looked at Mo Yuing beside her. "Shadow, I'll leave Wuxia to you. Don't let him leave." Mo Yuing tilted her head and immediately nodded, "I understand." He knew that Godless Island respected Mo Yuying's identity very much. Yi Qingluo wasn't afraid that Wuxia would escape from Mo Yuying's hands. Thus, she focused all her attention on Yi Feng-yu's succession ceremony. Just now, a series of unexpected events had occurred. It didn't just shock the various forces present. It also caused the old ancestor to be astonished. Hearing Yi Qingluo's words, the walking stick in old madam's hand started to tremble uncontrollably. Without the Baiming clan by his side to take care of him. After a series of huge changes, the elder ancestor couldn't even stand up at this time. No. No. Old 8, you can't be the leader of the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor's voice trembled as he tried his best to stop him. The old ancestor had seen Yi Feng-yu's performance just now. She admired Yi Feng-yu's methods against Yi Feng-ru. He was also very proud that Yi Feng-yu had such a powerful aura at such a young age. But, thinking of what Yi Qingluo had said earlier, it had easily changed Yi Feng-yu's emotions. Moreover, Yi Feng-yu obviously followed Yi Qingluo's lead. If Yi Feng-yu inherited the Three Springs sect, in the end, hadn't he still fallen into Yi Qingluo's hands? She wanted to make use of the relationship between Yi Qingluo and Yi Feng-yu, and use Yi Qingluo's current influence to stabilize Three Springs sect. But it didn't mean that she was willing to let Yi Qingluo make use of him to control the Three Springs sect. Before Yi Feng-yu had any feelings for Yi Qingluo, Yi Feng-yu absolutely could not inherit the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor's sudden resistance caused everyone present to be stunned. Before this, didn't the old ancestor always approve of Yi Feng-yu becoming the sect leader of the Three Springs sect? Why did he suddenly change his mind? That's right. He could not become the leader of the Three Springs sect. The Three Springs sect isn't something that can be inherited just because you say so. The sect elder's voice rang out, and the sect elder appeared out of nowhere. The sect elder stood beside the old ancestor. From the first time he saw Yi Qingluo, he felt that this young lady's threat to him was simply too huge. Now, it seemed that it was indeed so. No matter what, he had to unite with the old forefather and chase Yiqing Luo, this pervert, out of Three Springs sect. Furthermore, those who were related to Yiqing Luo, those who had deep feelings for her, should all be chased out of Three Springs sect. TSK, you're indeed a cowardly and useless elder. Now that the matter has been settled, you're already running out to create trouble. Yiqing Luo ridiculed without any restraint. The sect elder's face darkened. What did you say? This elder is just. He stammered as he tried to retort. After a long while, he finally said, that kid didn't poison me, I was poisoned. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. The disdain in her eyes was obvious. The corner of her mouth curved up, and her eyes narrowed. She glanced sideways at the sect elder. If I'm not mistaken, it seems that in the instant that Yifengru poisoned him, the sect elder fled faster than a rabbit. She paused and turned her head to look at Yifengyu, smiling as she asked, Xiao Yu, am I right? Chapter 2109. You two siblings want to join forces and humiliate me so that you can ascend to the position of the Three Springs sect's lord, right? Let me tell you, as long as I am alive, I will take on the responsibility of Three Springs sect's sect elder. The sect elder's face was livid with anger, but he could only clamor and refuse to relent. After saying that, he pushed the elder ancestor beside him. You are the only elder in this generation of Three Springs sect. Tell me, am I right? The old ancestor's eyes had always been fixed on Yifengyu. Hearing the sect elder's words, her old eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. His entire person seemed to have aged several decades. How could the elder ancestor not know that Yifengyu was the only one in the Three Springs sect who could shoulder this responsibility? Yifengyu was also the most suitable candidate. But, unfortunately, she was worried about that meticulous and unpredictable Yiqing Luo. She did not want to see Three Springs sect fall into the hands of an outsider. The old ancestor stared blankly at Yifengyu for a long time. She slowly closed her eyes and sighed softly. Eighth brother's personality is not suitable to inherit the position of sect master. Hearing this, the sect leader felt a sense of satisfaction that he had finally received the support of the Yi clan. That's right. Yifengyu does not have the qualifications to inherit Three Springs sect. A sinister glint flashed in the sect elder's eyes. Now that the Three Springs sect is in a precarious situation, we need someone who can stabilize the Three Springs sect and ensure its future development to shoulder this heavy responsibility. He paused and said meaningfully, Old ancestor, in my opinion, what do you think? How could a smart person not understand the meaning behind the sect elder's words? Three Springs sect's young masters and young mistresses were either dead or injured. Only the two young masters, Yifengru and Yifengyu, were still alive. Yifengru would never have the chance to become the Three Springs sect leader. Even Yifengru didn't have the qualifications. The person who could protect and stabilize the Three Springs sect, apart from the sect elders, there were no other candidates. The old ancestor did not expect that the sect elder would actually have such ambition. No sect elder had ever interfered with Three Springs sect's internal affairs. He was the first elder who wanted to take charge of the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor did not know how to respond. Although this sect elder was from the Three Springs sect. However, in the heart of the old ancestor, he was still an outsider. Let the sect elders manage the Three Springs sect. It was no different from letting Yiqing Luo borrow Yifengyu's hand to manage Three Springs sect. What I mean is, I will temporarily take over the position of the sect leader and train the young sect leader with you, old ancestor. Until the old ancestor feels that the young sect leader is capable of shouldering the responsibility of the Three Springs sect, I will step down. Seeing that the old ancestor was moved, the sect elders increased their efforts to persuade him. As expected, the old ancestor was persuaded. So, the sect elders have been nitpicking at me the moment they saw me. They're not willing to let me or little you become the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. They're all waiting for this moment. A sweet and disdainful voice of a young lady came from the side. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms and looked at the sect elder with disdain. This can't be, that one is not qualified. The sect elder is really awe-inspiring. Then, I have something to ask. If little you is not qualified to be the Three Springs sect leader, then, what qualifications do you have as the sect elder? Yiqing Luo's last sentence was abruptly raised. Chapter 21:10. The entire garden fell into silence. In that instant, the atmosphere in the area froze. No one dared to make a sound as they stared nervously at the situation in front of them. Everyone could tell that Yiqing Luo was angry. If it were them, they would be angry too. The sect elder had obviously made up his mind long ago. He wanted to take this opportunity to seize control of Three Springs sect. An outer sect elder. He wanted to seize control of internal affairs. This kind of thing, no matter which family, was absolutely not allowed to happen. However, old Grand Madam was moved. They really couldn't understand what old Grand Madam was thinking. She would rather believe in an outer sect elder, and not willing to believe in her own grandson. There was such an elder in Three Springs sect. If Three Springs sect announced its demise now, they absolutely believed in it. Even if it didn't fall now. Without Yiqing Luo's support, it was only a matter of time before it fell. You are an outsider, you have no right to intervene in Three Springs sect's affairs. The sect elder gritted his teeth and retorted. He put on a righteous look and snorted coldly. I am just doing official business. Although you are the young patriarch chosen by the former patriarch, but you do not have the blood of the Yi family flowing in you. You who are not from the Yi family, what right do you have to inherit the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch? The sect elder didn't panic and argued with reason. And Yi Fengyu, the Yi family's 8th young master, although he has the blood of the Yi family, but he is still young and his temperament is not suitable to take on such a big responsibility. My duty is to protect Three Springs sect and every generation's patriarch of Three Springs sect. It is reasonable for me to stay in Three Springs sect and nurture the 8th young master while managing Three Springs sect on behalf of him. Why did you say that I am a traitor who covets Three Springs sect? I am the sect elder of the Three Springs sect. My status is noble. Even the Yi clan's old sect leader of the 3rd generation would have to address me respectfully as Lord Elder. Why should I covet Three Springs sect's authority? The sect elder's words sounded extremely reasonable. Yiqing Luo snorted coldly, so what if your status is noble, you still don't have any real power? Her words hit the nail on the head. It directly pierced into the sect elder's vital point. The sect elder's face suddenly turned pale, and his 5 fingers clenched tightly into a fist. Especially in recent generations, I'm afraid the sect leader of the Three Springs sect has almost forgotten about the sect elders. How long had it been since he had enjoyed the honorable treatment from the previous sect master? You've wasted so much time. How could you possibly not be interested in the Three Springs sect's power? Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards, revealing a few traces of ridicule. The sect elder was rendered speechless. His face was dark and gloomy, and his facial features looked somewhat sinister. Sect elder, you really? Old Grand Madam realized the seriousness of the matter when she heard Yiqing Luo's words. Her heart sank. He had lived for most of his life, yet he was blinded at this critical moment. He really wanted an outer sect elder to take charge of the Three Springs sect. She was really getting old, his heart was getting more and more confused. Chapter 21:11. Looking at the sect elder who was still trying his best to quibble. Yiqing Luo's face was still calm, her lips curled into a faint smile. That calm look. It formed a sharp contrast with the exasperated sect elder. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and smiled faintly. Sect elder, don't you think that the excuse of jealousy is too far-fetched? All the guests here can see clearly that I, Yiqing Luo, have never thought of inheriting Three Springs sect. From the beginning to the end, today's succession ceremony was single-handedly created by me for little you. You were obviously exposed on the spot that you are not a descendant of the Yi family, that's why 8th young master came to replace you. The sect elder roared. Yiqing Luo snorted coldly, if I want to be the patriarch of Three Springs sect, why should I not wear the attire specially made for me? Why would little you wear the attire of Three Springs sect and appear here? After a pause, she asked, or does the sect elder think that I have the ability to predict the future? You. The sect elder was speechless as he stared at Yiqing Luo with a steely expression. Yiqing Luo placed one hand on his shoulder. Her slender body only reached Yifengyu's shoulders. However, her aura was extremely powerful. She squinted her eyes, that sinister smile on her lips was extremely treacherous. What? Could it be that the sect elder is really going to insist that I can predict the future? The minute Yiqing Luo said that, everyone present couldn't help but burst out laughing. Yes, Yiqing Luo's words were reasonable. She didn't wear the attire specially made by the old Grand Master. Obviously, she had no intention to inherit the position of patriarch. From the beginning to the end, she had been planning for her brother. In comparison, it was obvious that the sect elder wanted to control the Three Springs sect. It was obvious that he was an ambitious elder of the sect. You two siblings deliberately colluded. Who doesn't know that 8th young master only listens to you? What's the difference between him and you being the patriarch? The sect elder stubbornly refused to let Yiqing Luo go. He's only 15. He's not old enough to be crowned, and he's not qualified to inherit the position of the sect leader. The sect elders racked their brains and finally grasped the most important point in the rules of inheriting the position of the sect master. A complacent smile appeared on his face. If you were a descendant of the Yi clan, it would be logical for you to inherit the position of the clan leader when the clan leader died in an accident. But when the previous sect leader was alive, he had no intention of nurturing the 8th young master. If he inherits the position at this age, I'm afraid the future of the Three Springs sect. He stopped talking. However, everyone understood what he meant by the words he didn't finish. The old ancestor's expression also became solemn. The sect elder stroked his white flowery beard and looked at Yiqing Luo complacently. According to the rules of succession, before Yifengyu reaches the age of 20, he has no right to inherit the position of sect master. He thought that after extinguishing all of Yiqing Luo's hopes, Yiqing Luo would definitely be flustered. But, looking at Yiqing Luo for some time, the corners of Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a strange sneer. The sect elder's heart trembled. Could it be that Yiqing Luo still had some tricks up her sleeves? Yiqing Luo placed her hands on Yifengyu's shoulders and pushed him towards the direction of the crowd. Chapter 21:12. Yiqing Luo's gaze lightly swept over the sect elder. The hand on Yifengyu's shoulder slowly lifted up and gently tapped on his forehead. Yifengyu understood Yiqing Luo's meaning. He immediately closed his eyes and let his heart gradually settle down, until he felt the scalding sensation on his forehead. Yifengyu then opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, he felt a chill down his spine. His entire aura was released in an instant. The young man was dressed in a solemn navy blue brocade robe. It should have looked extremely comical with that slightly immature face. But the young man's solemn expression, He forcibly raised his own aura to the peak. And also suppressed his own immaturity. The most shocking thing was, on the young man's forehead, there were a few extremely light but distinct patterns. The red flowing light outlined the faintly discernible patterns. At the same time, the dark clouds in the sky dispersed. The projected sunlight shone on the young man's handsome and extraordinary face. That powerful aura was so majestic that the entire garden fell into a dead silence. No matter how powerful the representative was, regardless of seniority or age. At this moment, they were all suppressed by Yi Fengyu's powerful aura and dared not to breathe. Everyone sighed in their hearts. He was indeed the younger brother that Yiqing Luo brought up. At such a young age, he had such an oppressive aura. If properly cultivated, in the future when he grew up, he would absolutely become an overlord. Sect Elder, Old Grand Madam, now. Is little you qualified? Yiqing Luo let go of Yi Fengyu's hand and put her hands behind her back, smiling brightly. As everyone knows, every patriarch of the 4 major sects is selected by the godly emperor that we protect. In every generation, there will be a Yi family descendant who will inherit the patriarch's legacy, which is the imprint of the godly emperor. Yiqing Luo's voice was calm and her enunciation was clear, narrating what everyone knew. This legend. In everyone's heart, it was just a legend. But today, they really saw the God Emperor's imprint on Yi Fengyu's forehead. Their hearts were all shocked. God Emperor's imprint. It really is the God Emperor's imprint. Elder Ancestor suddenly stood up from the soft chair. His hand that was holding onto the walking stick was also trembling non-stop. Tears welled up in his murky old eyes. She excitedly strode towards Yi Fengyu. The mark of the Divine Emperor. This generation of the Yi clan finally had someone with the Divine Emperor's mark. She had thought that Yi Tianquang's sins were too deep, causing this generation to lose the Divine Emperor's imprint and the recognition of the Divine Emperor. Because of this. That was why she felt uneasy because of Yiqing Luo's identity. He was afraid that Yiqing Luo's appearance was told to her by the Emperor of Gods through the God Emperor's imprint. The 3 Springs sect might disappear from this world. Otherwise, how could the descendants of this generation have lost the mark of the Divine Emperor? When she saw the Divine Emperor's mark on Yi Fengyu's forehead, the old ancestor's heart was finally at ease. The person who has the Divine Emperor's mark is the successor chosen by the Divine Emperor himself. Old Aid is qualified. He is the most qualified to become. I don't believe it. Before the old ancestor could finish her words, she was interrupted by the sect elder's exasperated roar. Yiqing Luo, I have the right to suspect that you want 8th young master to become the patriarch and deliberately use the matter of the Divine Emperor's imprint to deceive me. Chapter 21:13. The sect elder's behavior aroused the disgust of the crowd. Anyone could see the sect elder's ambition for the 3 Springs sect at this moment. Under the leadership of the representatives of several forces. Someone raised his arm and shouted, Yi Fengyu, the sect leader of the 3 Springs sect. Yi Fengyu, the sect leader of the 3 Springs sect. Yi Fengyu, the sect leader of the 3 Springs sect. The orderly shouts were deafening. The sect elder's face turned ashen. He clenched his fists, feeling that he had no real power. He only had the title of sect elder. He could not stand in the 3 Springs sect at all. He had not appeared for a few decades. These juniors dared to not give him face. Even the elder ancestor and Yi Tianquang had once respectfully knelt at his feet. Now they dared to question him. That was why he had no power. If he had real power, he could control the life and death of the 3 Springs sect. How would the elder ancestor and the juniors of the 3 Springs sect dare to treat him like this? The more the sect elder thought about it, the more unbalanced he felt. His face darkened. He reached out and pressed the red pattern on Yifengyu's forehead. He did not believe that the Divine Emperor's mark was real. It should be known that those who had the Divine Emperor's mark would have the mark appear on their forehead every new day. Their entire body would be cleansed by the power of the mark. Yifengyu had been in the Yi clan for 15 years. If Yifengyu had the Divine Emperor's mark, how could the Yi clan not have discovered its existence after so many years? This mark was a great honor for the descendants of the Yi clan. Would Yifengyu hide it from the Yi clan when he discovered that he had the mark? So, Yifengyu's mark was definitely fake. However, when the sect elder's hand touched the mark on Yifengyu's forehead, suddenly, a red light flowed out of Yifengyu's forehead and gathered in the center of his forehead. Whoosh! The red light turned into a sword of light and flew toward the sect elder's outstretched hand. Ah! The sect elder let out a blood-curdling scream as he was flung away by the red light and landed heavily on the ground. Then, the sect elder's face turned deathly pale as he struggled to crawl up from the ground. He knelt in Yifengyu's direction and begged, Sect leader, please spare my life. This subordinate was blinded by greed and deserves to die 10,000 times. As soon as he said this, he completely admitted it. The mark on Yifengyu's forehead. It was the mark of the Divine Emperor. Yifengyu was personally appointed by the Divine Emperor to be the leader of the Three Springs faction. If Yifengyu didn't have the qualifications to be the sovereign of the Three Springs sect, no one in the Yi clan had the right to do so. Immediately, the various forces stood up and began to congratulate him. Congratulations on inheriting the Three Springs sect leader. Even the luxurious garden had been razed to the ground. Even if the succession ceremony was drenched in blood. However, it still couldn't suppress the joy that came from the bottom of everyone's heart. Without the interference of the sect's elders, the succession ceremony was extremely smooth. The sect elder appeared to be trembling with fear, as if he was afraid that Yifengyu would act on a whim and use him as an example. If it was in the past, the position of the sect elder could be said to be on the same level as the sect leader. Although he had no real power, the sect leader still had to give him face and seek his opinion on everything. But, this time, the sect leader was a difficult character to deal with. Behind him was an even more difficult and extremely arrogant and despotic Yiqing Luo. If these two juniors wanted to mess with him, they would absolutely not show any mercy. Chapter 21:14. After the succession ceremony ended, news of what had happened at the succession ceremony quickly spread. The mystery of Yiqing Luo's birth was also spread like wildfire. Some people were guessing who Yiqing Luo's biological father was. But there were also people who hated Yiqing Luo and started to ridicule her for not being a noble Yi family member and ridiculed her mother. But Yiqing Luo didn't bother about these. On the night when the succession ceremony ended, Yiqing Luo went to Bei Ming's room. In Bei Ming's room, she found the item that she used to exchange for Yifengru's life. In the secret compartment, there was a well-kept wooden box. She could tell that Bei Ming often cleaned this box and was very attentive in taking care of it. Before she opened the box, Old Man Tsang's surprised voice rang in Yiqing Luo's mind, "Lass." Inside. There is a very familiar and strong presence inside. Yiqing Luo's hand which was holding the wooden box paused, very familiar. Yes. I definitely felt this presence somewhere before. But now, I can't remember. Old Man Tsang's spirit body came out from the azure dew bracelet. Old Man Tsang circled around the wooden box a few times. "Lass, this thing. If it really has something to do with your biological father, I'm afraid your future days will not be peaceful." Something that could make Old Man Tsang produce such a strong reaction. Yiqing Luo had a rough guess in her heart. Hearing Old Man Tsang's words, Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. "I know, this body of mine, no matter if it's innate talent or profound jade heart. It's obviously different from ordinary people. Plus, she crossed over to this other world. Contracted the Azure Dew bracelet. Received Old Man Song's guidance. All showed that her background was extraordinary. It could be said that from the moment she found out that her profound jade heart was the one and only divine phoenix profound jade heart in the world, Yiqing Luo already had some suspicions. She wasn't a member of the Yi family. But today, she heard old Grand Madam and the rest personally said it. In other words, it confirmed her guess. Old Man Song, don't worry, I'm not an impulsive person. Yiqing Luo held the wooden box tightly. Even if I know the truth, I won't immediately search for my background. I won't act rashly before I'm strong enough to protect myself and the people around me. Yiqing Luo's eyes drooped as she gazed at the wooden box in her palm. Then, he put the wooden box into the profound phoenix ring. Today's matter will definitely spread like wildfire. Many people will speculate about my background. I think I should wait until you feel that I'm strong enough before I take a look at it. The ancients often said that a tall tree attracts the wind. More and more people were paying attention to Yiqing Luo. This would make more and more people start to suspect Yiqing Luo. Previously there was Three Springs sect as a smokescreen, in addition to Dmo Xian's reputation, suppressing the reason of Yiqing Luo's outstanding innate talent. But, the news that Yiqing Luo was not a descendant of the Three Springs sect spread out. Yiqing Luo's innate talent was bound to be speculated by those with ulterior motives. As soon as Old Man Song touched the wooden box, he sensed the powerful aura inside. If someone were to find out, it would definitely be disadvantageous to Yiqing Luo. Placing the wooden box into the profound phoenix ring would conceal the box's aura. It's naturally the best that you can think this way. Old Man Song also heaved a sigh of relief. This old man was still thinking about how to persuade you to dispel the idea of searching for your background. Chapter 21:15. Old Man Song's eyes were filled with pity as he looked at the calm young lady. His heart was filled with heartache for her. And also filled with pride. She was indeed the young lady whom he fancied. She was able to maintain her calmness at any moment. A child with such a calm temperament, who remained unfazed in the face of danger. In future, she would definitely surpass his imagination. Old Man Song silently swore in his heart. As long as he was still able to exist in this world, he would protect this child. Yiqing Luo didn't know what Old Man Song was thinking about. After she kept the wooden box into the profound phoenix ring, she felt a strong force rushing into her blood vessels. It was only for a moment and it was suppressed by the profound phoenix ring. But that feeling, although it was only for a moment. Yiqing Luo still remembered that feeling. And she was even more certain that sealing this thing in the profound phoenix ring was the right choice. On a faraway mountain which was enshrouded in celestial qi. In front of a huge towering tree. One black and one white were playing chess. Dong, the sound of chess pieces falling onto the chessboard was heard. That tall and straight man who was shrouded in a cloak, his fingers were stiff, still maintaining the posture of holding a chess piece. Opposite the cloaked man, was a handsome gentleman in a white robe. The handsome gentleman looked at the cloaked man's black chess piece on the chessboard and smiled. What happened? You can't even hold the chess pieces properly. The cloaked man's stiff fingers on the chessboard curled up one by one. The plan has been disrupted. There's actually someone who can disrupt your plan. Could it be that woman? The handsome gentleman raised his brows in interest. The cloaked man's fingers clenched tightly. Under the cloak, that pair of treacherous cold eyes shot out a chilling intent. That slut actually left that thing in the lower realm. That thing. If it sees the light of day again, the people in the god realm will definitely find out about Yiqing Luo's whereabouts. Yiqing Luo. The handsome gentleman murmured this name, his smile became more and more playful. Is that the vessel that you keep? The cloaked man didn't reply. He suddenly slammed the chessboard and stood up. In a blink of an eye, the cloaked man had already disappeared from the top of the mountain. The handsome gentleman held on to a faint smile, his mouth muttered these 3 words. Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo. Nirvana Realm, 3 Springs Sect. Yiqing Luo just came out from the Baiming clan's room. He saw Yi Fengyu walking toward him. When he saw Yiqing Luo, his eyes shone brightly as he took a quick step forward. Sister, how is it? Do you know who your father is? It doesn't matter who my father is. Looking at his worried eyes, Yiqing Luo smiled lightly. No matter who it is, I will always be your sister. You. Of course you are my sister. Yi Fengyu held Yiqing Luo's wrist tightly. Our mothers are from the same mother, we have the same blood flowing in our veins. You are my biological sister. Yiqing Luo laughed lowly, raised her hand and rubbed the boy who was a head taller than her. Silly Xiaoyu, don't you believe in your own mother? Mother is such a good woman, how could she betray Yi Tianquang, betray the path of women? Yi Fengyu's expression stiffened. The hand which was grabbing Yiqing Luo's wrist also paused for a moment. Yiqing Luo's words, of course he had thought about it. In his memory, although his mother didn't like his father, but she would absolutely not do anything that violated the path of women. But, old Grand Madam personally admitted it. He and his sister were born from the same blood, but they were not biological siblings. But indeed, they were born from the same mother. In Yi Fengyu's heart, he was still unwilling to believe that his mother would betray his father. Chapter 21:16. Yiqing Luo rubbed her brother's head hard. Silly Xiaoyu, even if we don't have the same blood flowing in our bodies, we are still biological siblings. You will always be my younger brother. These ancient people did not know. As someone from the 21st century, how could she not understand this common sense? If her mother really was pregnant with her before Yi Tianquang returned to the mansion. After that, it would be impossible for her to get pregnant with Yi Fengyu. Between her and Yi Fengyu, there must be a child who wasn't her mother's biological child. Yi Fengyu was a descendant of the Yi family. That also meant that she wasn't born from her mother. As for why it turned out to be her and Yi Fengyu's twin, perhaps only mother would know the secret behind it. Sister. After listening to Yiqing Luo's words, Yi Fengyu's eyes became misty. Yes, I will always be your brother. Yes, no matter what the truth was. The sibling relationship between him and his sister was real, and that was enough. That's right, big sister, the old ancestor said, she has something to talk to you about. She's waiting for you in the hall. Yi Fengyu suddenly recalled the reason why he came to look for Yiqing Luo and lowered his voice. Elder sister, old Grand Madam is getting on in years and everything she has done, although it's very unfair to you, but it's all for the sake of the Yi family. If it's possible, can elder sister not blame old Grand Madam? Yi Fengyu knew that his request to Yiqing Luo was too much. He had seen everything that old Grand Madam had done to Yiqing Luo in the past and that had aroused his anger. However, when he thought of the scene that the old ancestor had just witnessed, in the end, Yi Fengyu's heart softened. After all, this was his grandmother. It was his biological grandmother. I'm not asking you to tolerate her. After saying that, Yi Fengyu hurriedly added, I just wanted to say, if the old ancestor didn't target you, could big sister, I understand. Yiqing Luo patted Yi Fengyu's shoulder, looking at his frightened look, she couldn't help but pull his face. I'm not a man-eating tiger, if she doesn't provoke me, I naturally won't intentionally provoke her. Moreover, I still want to ask her about the details of what happened back then. Yi Fengyu immediately beamed with joy. He knew that his sister would do what she promised him. He absolutely believed that the elder ancestor would no longer target his sister. The Three Springs sect and the Yi clan were either dead or crippled. He only had his ancestor and his sister as his relatives. She followed Yi Fengyu into the hall one after the other. There was only one person sitting in the hall. It was just the old ancestor alone. Yi Qingluo squinted at old grandmadam and saw that on her aged face, her eyes were slightly red. Apparently she had cried earlier. Yi Qingluo could faintly guess what old grandmadam wanted her to discuss about. It seemed that the two of them had reached a consensus. He wanted to talk about what had happened in the past. This was good as well. If their goals were the same, at least they wouldn't have a falling out and Yi Fengyu would be stuck in the middle. Yi Qingluo walked into the main hall and sat down on the soft chair on old grandmadam's right-hand side. Seeing Yi Qingluo, old grandmadam hinted with her eyes. Yi Fengyu immediately walked to the door, and with a wave of his perception, he closed the door of the hall. Old grandmadam stood up and her hand which was holding onto the walking stick trembled slightly. Old 7, today it's all thanks to. Yi Qingluo raised her hand and interrupted old grandmadam's words. Chapter 21:17. The old ancestor's face stiffened. Seeing this, Yi Fengyu was worried that the atmosphere would become stiff, so he immediately smiled and tried to smooth things over. Ancestor, elder sister is just worried about your health. So many things have happened today, ancestor must be tired. Elder sister just wants to finish talking so that you can rest. Old grandmadam stared at Yi Qingluo without blinking. His sinister and treacherous eyes were shrouded in a complicated and incomprehensible light. She gradually loosened her grip on her walking stick. After a long while, she let out a heavy sigh and fell back into her seat. Old 7th, I know you are blaming me. Elder ancestor closed her eyes weakly. If I had known that you had no interest in Three Springs sect, I wouldn't have said such a thing in public. To spread the news that Yi Qingluo wasn't a descendant of the Yi family. It wasn't only Yi Qingluo's reputation that was ruined, it wasn't only the reputation of Yi Fengyu's mother. It was also the reputation of the entire Three Springs sect. After all, Yi Fengyu's mother had been dead for almost 10 years. She was also carrying the title of the mistress of the Yi family, Madame Yi. When Madame Yi was alive, she secretly had an affair with a mysterious man and gave birth to a baby girl. This made Three Springs sect become the laughingstock of the Nirvana realm. Moreover, old grandmadam wanted to make use of Yi Qingluo's current status in the Nirvana realm to boost Three Springs sect's prestige. This idea was no longer feasible now. Since the matter has already happened, no matter how much you repent, you will not be able to erase what you have done. Yi Qingluo's words were impolite, but her tone was extremely calm. Her tone was very calm. Ancestor, I'm sure you know why I came here. There's no need to say anything else. Just tell me the details of what happened back then. The elder ancestor's facial muscles trembled. His shriveled lips moved as if he wanted to say something. But when he met Yi Qingluo's calm and clear eyes, all the words he wanted to say were stuck in his throat. Old madam was deeply aware that she had let Yi Qingluo down. If it wasn't for Yi Qingluo, Three Springs sect would not only fall into the hands of an outer sect elder, more importantly, the Three Springs sect might really fall because of this. And she would personally destroy the eighth brother who was recognized by the Divine Emperor, towards Yi Qingluo's attitude. The old ancestor didn't say anything in the end. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. He then looked towards Yi Qingluo, as he told her everything that he knew back then, in full detail. Things were roughly the same as what he had learned during the succession ceremony. Old Grand Madam then told Yiqing Luo in detail what had happened. Yi Tianquang had been working in other continents for several months and hadn't returned to the Three Springs sect. At that time, the Three Springs sect was managed by the elder ancestor. One day, when Madame Yuqi was accompanying her ancestor for a stroll in the garden, she found Madame Yi acting mysteriously in the rockery in the garden. Madame Yi was obviously more flustered after being exposed by the great ancestor. Under Madame Yuqi's vague guidance, the grand elder ancestor thought of the words, cheating on a man. However, after a thorough investigation, the elder ancestor did not find any traces of other men in the rockery, although this matter was left unsettled. However, a seed of doubt was planted in the heart of the old ancestor. Naturally, he began to pay more attention to Madame Yi. The more he paid attention, the more he felt that Madame Yi was hiding a huge secret. The more he paid attention, the more he felt that Madame Yi was hiding a huge secret. Chapter 21:18. Until 2 months before Yi Tianquang was about to return to the western continent, the elder ancestor discovered that Madame Ye's body was getting weaker and weaker, and she was retching from time to time. At first, he was able to appear at the family dinner at noon. However, after a long time, Madame Yi seemed to smell the delicacies on the table and began to vomit. In the end, he could only hide in his own courtyard, unable to go out. Madame Yuqi unintentionally mentioned that this was the same as when she was pregnant with Yiqing Qian and Yiqing Ling. The grand elder, who had suspected that Madame Yi was having an affair, immediately felt that Madame Yi was pregnant with another man's child. The more the old ancestor thought about it, the more he felt that his guess was correct. However, Madame Ye's methods were too brilliant. Even if a doctor came, there was no way to accurately diagnose that Madame Yi was pregnant. But the more he couldn't find anything, the more he couldn't. The grand elder became even more suspicious. Elder ancestor thought that when Madame Ye's belly became bigger, nothing could be hidden anymore. Thus, after waiting for 2 months, Yi Tianquang returned to the Three Springs sect. During this period of time, old ancestor had been keeping an eye on Madame Yi, but he didn't find anything that could be used against her. She didn't see Madame Ye's belly getting bigger. After Yi Tianquang returned, the old ancestor wanted to find an opportunity to talk about this matter with his son. Who knew that before she could find her son, he heard his son going to Madame Ye's courtyard. He didn't leave the courtyard until the afternoon of the second day. This infuriated the concubines of the other 2 branches. Madame Yuqi was especially enraged and immediately ran to the elder ancestor to fan the flames. The old ancestor had originally been suspicious of Madame Yi. When he heard that his own son had actually stayed in Madame Ye's courtyard for a whole day, he couldn't help but secretly curse Madame Yi as a vixen. While dragging his own son, he told Yi Tianquang his own guess. Yi Tianquang didn't really care. He knew very well whether his woman was pregnant or not. However, the grand elder insisted that Madame Yi was having an affair and that she was pregnant with a bastard. Yi Tianquang was helpless. He could only tell the old ancestor why he had come to Madame Ye's courtyard. After that, the old ancestor no longer asked about this matter. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Then came the news that Madame Yi was pregnant. The more the old ancestor thought about it, the more she felt that Madame Yi had schemed everything. She wanted to give Yi Tianquang the child she had slept with another man. However, Yi Tianquang had already specifically warned them. He stopped her from acting rashly. The old ancestor could only endure it. Sure enough, Madame Yi gave birth prematurely in less than 8 months of pregnancy. This time, there was no need for Madame Yuqi to sow discord. The old ancestor couldn't believe Madame Yi. But after Yiqing Luo was born, However, news came that Yi Fengyu was in a critical condition and was on the verge of death. This news made the Grand Elder, who wanted to find Madame Yi to test her blood to prove her innocence, confused. Adultery and pregnancy were all her guesses. She couldn't find any evidence. Furthermore, Yi Tianquang had spent the night in Madame Ye's courtyard after returning, so he was very certain that Madame Yi wasn't pregnant. It was highly possible that the child would really be the legitimate son of the Yi family. If he didn't save them, what should they do after harming the legitimate son of the Yi clan? Especially since the Divine Emperor's mark had yet to appear on the other young masters and ladies. Then, after much consideration, the elder ancestor decided to use the forbidden technique to save the son of the Yi clan. Chapter 21:19. These are all that this old one knows. Everything that has happened. Recalling the past events, old Grand Madame's eyes were already hazy. Yi Fengyu took the soft silk handkerchief by the side and wiped old Grand Madame's eyes. It's all in the past, old Grand Madame, no matter if my sister is my biological sister or not, in my heart, she is my biological sister. His voice was very soft. However, the force in his words was sonorous and forceful, leaving no room for doubt. The great ancestor lightly patted the back of Yi Fengyu's hand, moved his hand away, and lightly sighed. This old one is old, the future is the era of you young people. Now that this old one has seen your divine emperor's mark, I also believe in your ability. Saying that, old Grand Madame raised her head and looked at the young face in front of her, revealing a kind smile that she hadn't shown for a long time. Grandma said before, Grandma will not interfere with your decision. What she meant. Even if Yi Fengyu wanted Three Springs sect to become Yi Qing Luo's solid backing in the future, she wouldn't say a word more. Yi Fengyu nodded hard. Grandma, don't worry, I will definitely make Three Springs sect flourish. Old Grand Madame smiled as she looked at Yi Qing Luo, old 7, although Grandmother had exposed your background in front of so many people today, but everything that you have done for Three Springs sect, Grandmother has seen it all. From today onwards, Grandma will not interfere with anything in Three Springs sect. You are still the 7th Missy of Three Springs sect, the number 7 in Grandma's heart. I only hope you don't blame Grandma, and can help Grandma protect number 8. Needless to say, I will also protect little you. Yi Qing Luo's tone was still indifferent. What you said earlier, I still have a few questions to ask in detail. Old Grand Madame had long expected that she would still have questions, so she nodded slowly. Ask away. You said, regarding your suspicion of my mother having an affair outside, it was because you and Madame Yuchi saw it together in the garden. Old Grand Madame was stunned and nodded, yes. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. Then, after you sensed that my mother's situation was not right, as if she was having an affair, you investigated my mother. At that time, was Madame Yuchi by your side? Yes. When old Madame heard Yi Qing Luo's question, her heart faintly seemed to have grasped something. Right, Madame Yuchi. She had always been by my side. The Yuchi clan. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she leaned against the soft chair. This Madame Yuchi hated her mother to the core. Her mother's death. It was definitely related to Madame Yuchi. Back then, Mother was suspected by the old ancestor of having an affair with someone else. It must also be a trap set by the Yuchi clan. It was very likely the reason why her mother had chosen to have her and Yi Fengyu be born as a pair of twins. Madame Yuchi might know. She should be glad that she only wanted to make Madame Yuchi's life a living hell and did not kill her. He even fed Madame Yuchi a pill that would make her unable to breathe. As long as Madame Yuchi was still alive, it was a piece of cake to pry information out of her mouth. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and asked again, then, that year you always suspected that my mother was pregnant with someone else's child, and Yi Tianquang stayed in my mother's courtyard for such a long time. What did Yi Tianquang say to you, that made you accept my mother?" Old Grand Madam's expression stiffened. Looking at Yi Qingluo's expression, his gaze seemed to be dodging. Chapter 21:20. Old Grand Madam's eyes kept dodging, not daring to look at Yi Qingluo's eyes. After Yi Qingluo finished asking these words, the corners of her mouth raised into a bright smile again. Her enchanting eyes were curved, long, and charming. "Old Grand Madam, you can choose not to say what happened in the past." Her voice was still as calm as ever, as if nothing could move her in the slightest. "Then, what you want, I can also choose, to turn them all into ashes." Old Grand Madam's dodging eyes stopped, her old eyes suddenly widened, looking at her in shock, as if she didn't believe her words. What Old Grand Madam hoped for was that Three Springs sect could be safe. The current patriarch of Three Springs sect was Yi Fengyu. How could Yi Qingluo be willing to let Yi Fengyu's Three Springs sect be destroyed? "You know, little Yu is very obedient to me." Yi Qingluo smiled, smiling disapprovingly. "Without Three Springs sect, I can still give him Four Springs sect, Five Springs sect." Her voice paused, her smile became more and more brilliant. "If you don't believe me, you can try." Old Grand Madam's face was completely livid. On her old face, there was a dark cloud. Compared to Yi Qingluo's smiling face, it formed a sharp contrast. Old Grand Madam's fingers clasped tightly on the walking stick. She suppressed the anger in her heart. He kept brainwashing himself in his heart. Today was different from the past. Old Eight's future, the future of Three Springs sect, must be supported by Yi Qingluo. Even for Three Springs sect, for Old Eight. Whatever Yi Qingluo wanted to know, she must tell Yi Qingluo. Old Grand Madam suppressed the anger in her heart, staring at Yi Qingluo, answering word by word. "In your mother's hands, there is something that Tianquang wants." Yi Qingluo raised her eyebrows. She had some guesses about this point. If it wasn't for the fact that her mother held something that Yi Tianquang wanted, or some secret. And this thing, it was not only beneficial to Yi Tianquang. It was also beneficial to Three Springs sect. Otherwise, Old Grand Madam would not be so easily convinced. Otherwise, Yi Tianquang would not exchange the position of young patriarch. Yi Qingluo half squinted her eyes and asked with a smile, "What is it?" "I don't know what it is exactly." Elder Ancestor shook her head. "Tianquang did not tell me too much about it. He only told me that this thing concerns the future of Three Springs sect." Yi Qingluo raised her eyebrows slightly. Clearly, he did not believe it. The old ancestor frowned. "Since I promised you that I would tell you what I know, it is naturally true." "Really?" Yi Qingluo continued to raise her brows and smiled. That smile caused annoyance to rise up in the old ancestor's heart for some reason. Old ancestor leaned on his walking stick and slammed it heavily on the ground. He simply let go and said directly, "Tianquang married your mother because he wanted that thing on her body. But your mother was always on guard against Tianquang. Even after they got married, she didn't hand that thing over to Tianquang. Back then, when Tianquang returned from another continent, he went to your mother's courtyard because your mother used that item to lure him to her courtyard. Old Eight, it's your mother. She used that item to trade for it." When these words were spoken, not only Yi Qingluo's expression changed. Yi Fengyu's complexion suddenly turned pale. Father married mother, just for one thing. And he was also exchanged for that thing by his mother. Yi Qingluo's heart was also shocked. What was the thing that Yi Tianquang had been thinking about for so long? Even after they got married, her mother didn't give that thing to Yi Tianquang. Chapter 21-21. But, why did mother use that thing to beg Yi Tian Kuang for a child? Could it be that mother had a reason to need a child at that time? Once she thought of her family, they were born from the same family. Yi Qing Luo's mind suddenly had a very bold idea. Mother begged Yi Tian Kuang for a child. Was it for her? This thought made Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly beat extremely fast. She clenched her fingers and asked, Mother wanted a child and Yi Tian Kuang gave it, but the thing. Mother still didn't give it to Yi Tian Kuang. Because of what happened to you. Old Grandmadam closed her eyes. Because you are not of the Yi family's bloodline, Tian Kuang wanted to kill you. It was your mother, who stopped Tian Kuang and used that thing to threaten him. So, I was able to become the young matriarch for so many years. It was all because my mother used that thing to exchange for it. In this way, all the previous doubts made sense. Old Grandmadam nodded. Yes, Tian Kuang promised your mother that the position of young matriarch will be kept for you until the day you reach marriageable age. As long as you live until then, that thing will automatically return to Tian Kuang's hands. Live until marriageable age, Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyes. This body was 15 years old this year, just reached marriageable age. And she, at this time, because the original owner of this body died, she took over this body. In other words, because this year, this body reached marriageable age. Therefore, Yi Tian Kuang allowed Yi Qing Qian and Yi Qing Ling to plot to destroy her. Dig out the profound jade heart. Destroy her innocence. Attempt to take her life. Then, now that I have reached marriageable age, is that thing already in Yi Tian Kuang's hands? Yi Qing Luo asked. Yi Qing Luo couldn't distinguish this problem now. Yi Tian Kuang should have obtained that thing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted against her and let his two daughters use this kind of cruel method to take her life when she was 15 years old. But, if Yi Tian Kuang really obtained that thing he had schemed for most of his life. With Yi Tian Kuang's temperament, he should have announced it long ago and made everyone know so that everyone would admire him. Moreover, this was equivalent to having something to protect his life. How could he have been killed by Yi Fingru? How could he have been stripped of his position as sect master? No. Old Grandmadam looked at Yi Qing Luo and it wasn't hard to tell that in her tone, there was some suppressed anger. This anger was for Madam Yi. Your mother has lied to all of us. From the beginning to the end, she had never thought of handing that thing over to Tian Kuang. She's just using that thing to fool the Yi family. The old ancestor leaned back in the soft chair. The old voice trembled with anger. There's no such thing. You've reached the marriageable age, but that thing still hasn't appeared. And your mother died a long time ago. She's dead. No one knows where she hid that thing. She was angry, but also upset. Madame Ye's death was caused by her and Madame Yuqi. She let Madame Yi die. It was because he could not bear to see Madame Yi use that thing to threaten Tian Kuang time and again. He was also completely sure that after Yi Qing Luo reached the age of 15, she would definitely get that item. But in the end, he didn't expect this kind of ending. Old Grandmadam's old eyes suddenly opened wide. He stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.